Stargate Book presents The Subconscious Mind, How to Reach and Arouse by Gertrude A. Bradford. Digitally narrated using the voice of Edward Herman. Chapter 1. How to Reach the Subconscious Mind. We hear so much these days about the importance of reaching the subconscious mind that it is very easy for one to assume that there is no other important factor in demonstration. Yet there are two other factors equally, if not more important, i.e., arousing the interest of and gaining a response from the subconscious mind. No perfect demonstration can be made without each of these three factors receiving the proper consideration. Reaching the subconscious mind is merely the preliminary process of demonstration. Like touching the keys of a piano is but the preliminary steps to producing music. To gain a response from the subconscious mind is as necessary in demonstrating material things as it is to awaken a responsive tone from the keys of a piano in order to produce a demonstration of music. However, in order to gain a response from the subconscious mind, its interest must be awakened, for the determination of the subconscious mind lies at its point of interest. Hence, the more interest awakened, the greater and quicker the response. Because of this fact, perfect demonstration must incorporate these three modes of directing the subconscious activities, reaching it, arousing its interest, and gaining its response. The reverent attitude, coupled with an earnest, specific desire, is the surest and quickest method of reaching the subconscious mind, but the reverent attitude is gained in a variety of ways according to the individual and development, also to subconscious habits and convictions, for it is easier for it to grasp ideas to which it has been the most closely related than it is to grasp suggestions, entirely new and strange. Remember, the subconscious mind operates wholly by suggestion, and whichever suggestions are more closely related to its dominant habits of activity will become crystallized into outer form more quickly than will suggestions which are new or only partly related to established habits. Therefore, the reverent attitude is gained more quickly by suggestions which follow most closely the natural trend of subconscious habit. Suggestion is classified into four groups: mental, verbal, physical, and veiled, and each is crystallized into material form as dominant conditions according to its quality. If your childhood training has been deeply religious and you have a great respect for what you have been taught, then your subconscious mind will be quickly reached by repeating favorite passages of Scripture, or those which especially illustrate best the point you wish to make or cover. Repeat not only one, but as many as you can think of pertaining to the subject at hand, continuing to quote until you are thrilled with reverence for your Creator and His divine and beautiful promises to those who love to do His will. If you are of a philosophical turn of mind, then use philosophical quotations to produce the desired result. There are transcendently beautiful thoughts contained in Emerson's essays, especially circles, self-reliance, and friendship. The writings of Socrates, as well as many of the more modern writers, also express truths which should be familiar to everyone who is seeking release from the bondage of materialism and its effects which manifest as ill health, unhappiness, poverty, and sordid environment. If poetry has always appealed to you, then by all means, quote beautiful poetry. And if you love the artistic and divine in whatever form you find it, then use whatever appeals to you most at the time. Kipling's If expresses some especially beautiful thoughts. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster, and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to, broken, and stoop and build 'em up with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings, and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose, and start again at your beginnings. And never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And, which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Rudyard Kipling. The reverent attitude can also be easily attained through fervent prayer. But if you pray as to a God in the clouds, afar off, you will be bitterly disappointed in your God. Pray as to a kind, loving friend who is sitting beside you, eagerly waiting and willing to do your slightest bidding instantly. When you are thrilled with the beauty and sincerity of that which you are repeating, then send out to this kind, loving friend your earnest desire, in a concise but specific form, with a confident feeling that what you ask will be granted, and that immediately. One can specify time and place in connection with sending forth one's desire, but one should never specify the channel through which it shall manifest. Divine power should never be limited to human vision or conception. That is why so many people fail in demonstration. They insist upon divine mind manifesting their desires through the channels which they specify. Faith is a feeling of confidence. Therefore, if you send forth your desire in a reverent, confident manner, you reach your subconscious mind almost instantly. Beautiful thoughts, like beautiful music, depict an insight into that which is divine, that which reaches beyond the materiality of the commonplace, recognizing an infinite power and wisdom that is sublime, fulfilling every desire of human longing. If you are lacking in faith, that is, if you have been taught an orthodox creed, and that your God is only concerned with universal issues and is unconcerned with the personal problems of an ordinary sinner, such as yourself, then you need to quote passages of Scripture that will convince your conscious and your subconscious minds that your Savior is an ever-present friend who is ready and willing and tenderly waiting to supply your every need. Ask and ye shall receive, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. Matt 7:7. In all their affliction he was afflicted, and the angel of his presence saved them, and he bare them and carried them all the days of old. Isaiah 63:9. Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 farthings, and not one of them is forgotten by God? Fear not therefore, ye are of more value than many sparrows. Luke 12:6-7. And seek not ye what ye shall eat, or what ye shall drink, neither be ye of doubtful mind. But rather seek ye the kingdom of God, love, and all these things shall be added unto you. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Luke 12:29-33. The following is good as a conclusive promise. This day is this scripture fulfilled in your ears, or as you hear it. Luke 4:11. Time and energy is the divine heritage of every human being, and is the only substance used in fashioning our lives. This truth clothes the statement of Thomas Jefferson: all men are created equal, with the vesture of divine wisdom, notwithstanding the statements of his biographers to the contrary, that he was a dreamer and more visionary than practical. Time and energy are used by each individual in a constructive or destructive manner, according to the divine qualities or in opposition to them. That is what makes success or failure. Time and energy expressed as God intended, as love, truth, faith, gratitude, and praise, must create success, while time and energy expended as hate, fear, anger, worry, or unkind criticism always react as failure. Thus you reach your subconscious mind by using time and energy to express a reverent, unselfish desire to accomplish something definitely worthwhile and, according to your faith, be it done unto you. I recall to mind a demonstration which clearly illustrates the points at issue. An earnest student, new in the study and application of psychology, found it necessary to demonstrate a set of dishes. She was the mother of 2 children and their sole support. She maintained the home by selling stocks and bonds. While the mother pursued her duties of breadwinner, the care of the house was largely left to the 2 children and an inexperienced girl. The oldest child owned a pet dog, which was considered by its young master much too valuable and high-bred to eat from common china or tin, in lieu of which the hand-painted china was used without the knowledge of the mother. The girl was given a home with the family in exchange for the companionship she might give to the children while the mother was at work. She knew very little about the science of housekeeping, and her method of washing dishes was very hard on the china. Consequently, the mother returned from a trip only to find her supply broken and limited to odds and ends, such as jelly glasses for drinking purposes, odd soup plates to supplement vegetable containers, and 2 or 3 cracked dinner plates. She had been asked to entertain at dinner one of the officials of the company by whom she was employed, and she had promised to do so. You can imagine her chagrin when she arrived home, only to find that she lacked the necessary dishes with which to serve a dinner and the funds with which to purchase new ones. Her arrival was on a Tuesday, and she had promised to entertain the following Saturday. What could she do? It was a serious condition, for she had no friends of whom she could borrow either money or dishes. The official she had been asked to entertain was practically a stranger and a very fastidious man, one who at least was entitled to a well-appointed table. The afternoon of her arrival home, she had an errand which took her into the shopping district of the city, and as she walked along, wondering what she could do to solve the disturbing problem, this query was forced into her consciousness. Why not let your knowledge of psychology solve your problem? Well, why not indeed? If one could demonstrate health and love, why not a set of dishes? A science which could solve big problems could surely solve the small ones as well. Had she not been taught that the great law could be applied to every problem, and that it worked with mathematical precision when applied in a scientific manner? Did she dare trust to her meager knowledge of the great law when failure might result at the last moment? She analyzed her motives in the matter and felt that her desire was both unselfish and right, for it was prompted by her regard for the sales manager who had shown her many courtesies. She finally decided to take a chance and pin her faith to the everlasting promise, "Ask and ye shall receive." This promise had been proven true too many times for it to fail her now, when gratitude demanded that she meet the obligation of the moment. Her final decision, following her meditation on the matter, was to apply psychological law and demonstrate a set of dishes. As harmony and order are divine laws, she knew that the demonstration of a set of dishes in keeping with the rest of her dining appointments would be in accord with what she had learned. Following her decision, she had no time to devote to concentration until the following morning after she had set the house to rights and was alone for an hour or 2. Getting herself into a reverent attitude by repeating several beautiful passages of Scripture, for her early training had been deeply religious, and she still retained great respect for the beautiful truths of biblical lore. She then sent her desire out into the universal ether in a clear, concise manner, and next proceeded to idealize that desire, both by mental argument and concentration. She continued to concentrate for perhaps half an hour, and then something interfered, and her concentration was postponed until the following day, which was Thursday. It was 10 a.m. before an opportunity came for following the plan she had decided upon. Seating herself in her favorite Sleepy Hollow chair, close to the window where the sunshine streamed in upon her, she proceeded to get her physical body into a perfectly comfortable position. The body is never perfectly comfortable until you are no longer conscious of any part of it. A dark room is to be avoided if possible, although many people advise meditation and concentration in a slightly darkened room, and some advise a room completely darkened. But if you wish a quick demonstration, choose a room that is flooded with sunlight, for that is God's way of energizing every creation. Destructive forces hover in dark places. Even a better way than a lighted room is to get out into the sunlight, where the fresh air and the trees and flowers help to inspire one to acts of love and kindness. The above-mentioned student preferred the great out-of-doors in which to do her meditating and concentrating, but at the particular time mentioned, the press of circumstances seemed to prevent. So, instead of complaining at conditions, she adjusted herself to them by holding the agreeable attitude and realizing that her environment must change whenever she applied the science of right thinking to the problem in the right way. After getting herself into the reverent attitude, she again sent out her desire in a clear, concise way, just as she had done on the previous day, the only change being that she visualized the desire in simple, specific words until they stood out clear and strong, as though written with white chalk upon a blackboard. She followed this with an intimate picture of her little family and invited guests sitting at the well-appointed dinner table, having a most enjoyable time. We will now turn the calendar back 1 year to the time when she had moved to her present location, a building containing 6 apartments and occupied by 5 other tenants who had all lived there for a much longer period than herself. During the entire year of her residence in the building, she had not made the acquaintance of any other tenant except the one who lived directly across the hall from her. Her 2 children knew most of the tenants, but there had been no occasion for coming in contact with any but the family who had the adjoining apartment. The occupants of the 2 first-floor apartments were wealthy, and their ways lay along the pleasant paths of life. They needed neither the friendship nor the assistance of one who had to earn her livelihood. One family on the 2nd floor she had never even heard her children mention, and the other occupant of that floor was only known to her by virtue of the fact that propinquity was an excellent excuse for borrowing. Although this was usually done through the agency of the children, never in person, for she never paid back the articles borrowed, so preferred not to come in contact with her neighbor on the top floor. The occasion of concentration above mentioned was just 2 days previous to the important dinner, and nothing had materialized which would indicate that the demonstration would be made. She only knew that God was a never-failing supply. Just as she was about to conclude her period of silence, a ring at the door bell aroused her, and upon answering it, she beheld a very pretty woman, in a sport costume but bareheaded. Pleasantly bowing and introducing herself, the stranger apologized for having disturbed her neighbor when she had never seen fit to make her acquaintance during the year of their residence in the building. But she used as her excuse the fact that every other neighbor was out, and she had accidentally locked herself out and found it necessary to gain entrance to her apartment in some way. Thinking that her neighbor's door key might fit the Yale lock in her own door, she had made bold to ask the favor of borrowing it. The key to both the Yale lock and the rear door were given her, also a case knife, with the advice to slip the knife through the door casing where the Yale lock was fastened, provided the keys did not fit, explaining that burglars had used that method of gaining entrance to the apartment across the hall some 2 weeks previous. In about 5 minutes, the woman returned with the keys and the knife, and profuse thanks for the accommodation and suggestion, as the knife alone had proven the only means of gaining an entrance. Our student of applied psychology invited her new acquaintance in, with the remark that she appreciated even this late opportunity of meeting her. The other woman made the excuse that she was moving on Saturday morning and was too busy to spare even 5 minutes, as she had not finished packing and had several pets to crate and ship, after which remark she hastened away. This incident raised a mental query in the mind of the student as to just what the unusual occurrence might mean, and she sat down to affirm that it could only bring good, for her common affirmation that God has perfected that which concerneth me was never failing. She never once dreamed that the incident had anything to do with the present demonstration, but, always mentally alert to the fact that there are no chance happenings, but that every circumstance is vital, she knew that it was important in some way. Nothing further of unusual interest happened during the day. The next morning being Friday, she decided to spend more time than usual on concentration, for the time of demonstration was fast approaching, and nothing had as yet transpired to give her the faintest hope that she would succeed, and she must prove that the law was demonstrable in minor as well as major problems. Again she was interrupted by a ring at the door bell, and answered it only to find the same smiling countenance bowing pleasantly, and asking if she might be granted the privilege of using the phone, saying as she entered that again all the tenants were out, and she was forced to ask the accommodation as she was busy packing, and found it extremely inconvenient to dress and go out to use a public phone. She apologized on the ground that she had been treated with such graciousness on the preceding day that she had presumed to ask still another favor. It seemed that her phone had to be disconnected some days previous, so that she might have the use of it upon her arrival in the new apartment to which she was moving. After using the phone, she was asked to sit and chat a while, as it seemed fate had decreed that they should get acquainted. She laughingly acquiesced and sat and chatted for about 5 minutes. She then made her excuses and departed, her hostess following her to the door, chatting and laughing as they went, and finally leaning over the newel post as the departing one descended to the second floor landing, where she stopped and, with a gesture of disgust, remarked to the effect that it seemed that she had packed nothing but dishes. She said that everywhere she turned, she saw dishes to be packed, dishes of all kinds and descriptions. She then laughed, saying she wondered if ever she would get through packing dishes. From the student at the top of the stairs came a remark to the effect that dishes would be the smallest part of packing if she were to move. And then followed a hasty resume of why she had so few. Upon hearing the story, told in a smiling, witty way, the first-floor tenant again threw up her hands, this time with a gesture of entreaty, and exclaimed, "Oh, won't you please do me one more favor?" And when she was answered in the affirmative, she said, "Please come down and get a set of dishes that are all packed, but which I would be glad to have out of my sight, as the one who gave them to me is now the object of my hate, and you will be doing me a favor by taking them out of my sight." Doubting that the woman could be in earnest, the student asked what the price of the set would be. "Not 1 cent, I would be only too glad to pay you for taking them away." Of course, the dishes matched the other dining appointments, and were a complete set, except for one saucer which had been broken. And an unusual feature of the demonstration was that the women have never met since that day. The dishes were a surplus supply for the one woman, and a much-needed supply for the other, and that need was met out of a surplus, as will always be the case when the demonstration is made on a scientific basis. The exchange created a perfect balance and brought happiness to both. It is always so. Universal forces are ever at work, striking a perfect balance, but never robbing one to meet another's need, simply meeting the need out of the surplus that has already been created. That is why, when you borrow of Peter to pay Paul, you are not working in accord with God's law. When you know how to apply the rule to each problem, you will attract what you need out of the established channels of supply, or will attract to you the one who can supply that need out of their surplus, and be happier in so doing. So, out of the cosmic ether, the need of the one brought her in contact with the one who could supply that need out of a surplus, and best of all, she proved that the great law worked in minor occasions when applied correctly. Chapter 2. How to arouse the interest of the subconscious mind. Desire, decision, and concentration are the means employed to direct, control, and impel to action the subconscious mind at will. It is a concise method of obtaining results quickly and effectively, and the student who understands how to express desire, make decisions, and practice concentration is unusually fortunate. Arousing the interest of the subconscious mind is the second step in perfect demonstration, and this is gained by the making of definite decisions. Decision is the hub upon which the wheel of fortune turns, the directing force back of visualization or desire. Decision determines the ultimate effect of every cause, colored by the activating motive back of the decision, because every decision is prompted by a motive. The average person goes through life never realizing the importance of making decisions, and so allows other people to decide all questions of any moment, thus causing trouble, which often continues until death ends the struggle. Regrets are most unpleasant and unprofitable, and one should avoid them as much as possible by making one's own decisions, for regrets are sure to follow in the wake of indecision, or as the result of allowing others to decide questions which belong exclusively to one's own existence. Remember that every act, as well as every thought, word, or deed, has its survival value, and the survival value of a decision, whether of social, financial, or domestic import, affects every department of the life. Decision gives definite direction to desire and controls the manifestations thereof. Decisions will arouse the interest of the most untrained subconscious mind and hold its attention until the final orders for action are given and completed by scientific concentration. A great many people complain that concentration is a most difficult thing to practice, and that it is impossible to hold the thoughts upon one issue more than a second or two at a time. This is due to the fact that the disgruntled student has not aroused the interest of the subconscious mind prior to the period of concentration. Whenever the proper method is employed, concentration becomes easy to the most untrained student. You will find that 1 week, devoted to the making of decisions, if you make them in a scientific manner and follow them by action, will revolutionize your life and start new activities. A decision should be specific, decisive, and emphatic, and should be acted upon with persistence and as much expediency as possible, but without undue haste, for haste is never wise. Haste that causes friction is most unscientific. We always accomplish most by scientific preparation and execution, never by haste. The component parts of each decision have their bearing upon the effect to be produced. Hence, every decision should be thoroughly analyzed before it is made final. Each quality and motive has a separate and distinct relation to your decision and the crystallized manifestation. What quality prompted your decision? Hate, fear, anger, envy, jealousy, greed, deception, revenge, love, truth, faith, tenderness, honesty, gratitude, or justice? What was the motive back of your decision? The desire to serve some one person or to render a service to the world. To achieve something worthwhile or to gain the best of someone. To extend hospitality to a friend or to deprive someone of your companionship or the love or affection of another. To cause trouble between friends or to make friends. Each motive sets the law of compensation to operating, and your decision determines the result which will ensue. If your motive is constructive, the result will be a manifestation of good, bringing satisfaction and joy in its wake. But if the motive is selfish, then some disagreeable condition or circumstance will manifest. It is all determined by you. I know of a woman who cannot understand why the people she meets are not truthful with her. Nearly every relative, friend, and acquaintance, as well as her business associates, use deception in their dealings with her, and she absolutely detests a liar. She is grieved and disappointed wherever she goes to find so many people who will deliberately lie to her about the most trivial things, and who seemingly do so without any apparent reason. She is cultured, well-read, stylish, speaks good English, is an excellent housekeeper, and yet every member of her family deceives her, and when she finds them out, as she always does in time, she cannot understand why they have been so unkind to her, and she places the entire blame upon their shoulders when the reason lies within her own heart. She is living a lie, a very terrible one according to psychological law, for she is married to a man she does not love or respect, but she continues to live with him because he is a sure meal ticket, and she considers that earning her own living is altogether too hard for one of her refinement. To all appearances, she is a very respectable married woman, but is she any better, or even as good, as the woman who advertises the fact that she is commercializing her body? The woman who is open and above board is at least making an attempt at truthfulness, while the one who is protected by the cloak of marriage vows advertises to the world that she is entitled to the respect of the world, while in her heart she is what the world condemns. Is it any wonder that the law of compensation brings back to her an exact reflection of what is in her heart? If she had a knowledge of the law and the courage to step out into the world as a creator of something worthwhile, or at least to give her love where she gives her body, then she would see the world in an entirely different light, and she would meet with frankness and sincerity on every hand. The secret places of the heart become public exhibitions of success or failure, sickness or health, poverty or comfort, friendship or enmity, to one versed in psychological laws. It is not enough to make a decision mentally and let it rest there, but each decision should be backed by action. For a mental decision is not really decisive until there is corresponding activity upon the physical plane. While the student should make decisions pertaining to the common issues of everyday life and make them often, he should also make decisions relative to questions of greater importance. However, I do not mean that one should insist upon having one's way about everything. Far from it. One could not so insist and still retain the agreeable attitude which is so important in the making of demonstrations. Insisting upon having one's way brings temporary satisfaction, but causes regrets that far outweigh any seeming good gained by selfishness, turning to gall and wormwood the sweets of life. The law of reciprocity never fails to operate, and he who sows evil must reap evil, as he who sows good must reap good. As ye sow, so shall ye reap. I know a woman who has expensive diamonds and plenty of them. She also has several closets filled with beautiful clothes, and she has a luxurious home. But about the first remark that is ever passed about her when her acquaintances meet for the first time, and she is mentioned, is, "Isn't she a Tartar?" Her family is made miserable because she insists upon having her own way about everything, and the desires of each member of the family must be subservient to hers. She makes decisions, not alone for herself, but for every member of her household as well. And their protests at her domination only increases the discord. She always gets her own way, but is very unhappy, and the chip on her shoulder is knocked off at the slightest vibration. People shun her, although they are nice to her face, for they are afraid of her. What good are all of her beautiful possessions and the expensive home which is only sleeping quarters for the family? I know another woman who also has beautiful diamonds and every comfort that money can buy, but, which is even greater, she is loved by all who know her. She is cultured, kind, and her watchword is service. She lives to serve others and to make others happy. But others are just as anxious to serve her, for service begets service as love begets love, and friendship begets friendship. Every quality creates after its kind, regardless of what that quality is. Hate, fear, selfishness, envy, and every destructive thought creates after its kind, and brings back to its creator the trouble and sorrow which is so justly deserved. My kind acquaintance makes decisions every day of her life, but how differently from the other woman. She allows everyone, including every member of her family, from the youngest to the oldest, to make their own personal decisions, and she appoints herself a committee of one to assist them in getting satisfactory results. She respects even the decisions of the baby as deserving attention and consideration. She understands the great law and knows positively that she obtains her desires by helping others to obtain theirs. She settles questions pertaining to the betterment of the family by making her decisions mentally but unselfishly, knowing that anything that is best for all is best for her as well, and after making her decisions in this manner, she then concentrates upon the ideal condition, and the desired result is obtained without friction, and with each one satisfied with the change. The very first decision for any student to make is one of self-improvement, for success is but the ultimate of a series of improvements, or a greater perfection than exists at the point of affliction, or at the time discords manifest into outer form. All discord, whether pertaining to matters of environment, health, or happiness, is but the outward manifestation of imperfection. It cannot be otherwise, for universal energy operates first as spiritual or mental cause, then as material effect, every cause having an effect, and every effect having its cause. And always the manifested condition is an exact replica or reflection of the inner condition. This fact seems strange to one not versed in psychological law and its unfailing operation, which is so aptly illustrated by the woman who hated liars, and was ignorant of the fact that it was living a lie which created the disagreeable conditions of her environment. Almost her entire association with others was a reflection of that condition, which was the very heart and soul of her existence, her marriage relations. For is not wifehood and motherhood the very heart of physical life? It permeates every department of human existence, and one's attitude toward these two phases of life affects even the financial affairs of the world. It is the desire of every human being to be admired by others, and yet what pitiful failures we meet on every hand, although the remedy is within the grasp of the most lowly. The recipe is so simple, and the directions so easily followed. Some years ago, I met a man at a dance. He was fairly good-looking and typically Irish, educated, a finished dancer, and so very courteous that he stood out from everyone else in the crowd. He could easily have been the most popular man there, but he was the least popular, and wholly owing to the fact of his untidy appearance. His linen was soiled enough to create an aloofness in those about him, and added to that was an odor of perspiration that repelled. Uncleanliness always repels while cleanliness always attracts. And his suit showed unmistakable signs of having been worn many times without being cleaned or pressed. Quite recently, I met the same man again, and it was plain to the most casual observer that in the matter of cleanliness and order, he had not improved himself. As a consequence, he is still shunned, although he puts forth a real effort to please and be popular. It is a pity, for he has all the requisites for the making of a successful man. But in business, the men are annoyed by his untidiness, and socially, he is impossible. The condition is one that could be easily remedied. And it is quite plain to be seen that his mother never realized the importance of cleanliness, for had she devoted enough time and energy to that particular phase of his training, he would express cleanliness and neatness. It would be an inherent trait due to prenatal and postnatal suggestion. His lack of neatness is purely a subconscious condition with him. So much so that he is blissfully ignorant of the stumbling block that prevents one of his dreams from being realized, his ambition of being popular and successful. I know of another young man who has none of the accomplishments of the above-mentioned gentleman. He is uncouth, speaks astonishingly poor English, never looks especially well-tailored, but in spite of these things everybody likes him, and is smilingly and kindly tolerant of him. Why? Because he is immaculate and is always doing nice things for everybody. Not so long ago, I heard a woman say of him, "You know, his English is absolutely funny, but he is so adorably clean that you just want to get close to him. It is a real treat just to go into his room. It has such a sweet, clean odor about it." His early training was one of cleanliness and order. But what is the psychology of these two personalities? The first one was surrounded in his home life by low ideals, not vicious, but lacking in sweet, wholesome vibrations that should have made up his prenatal and postnatal subconscious suggestions. The mother of the other man reared a large family of children, but she was a woman who had beautiful ideals and loved the duties of wifehood and motherhood. Her thoughts were beautiful, her words kind, and her actions were loving. She was a good friend to her neighbors and a wise counselor to her family. Every one of her children reflect and express the wholesomeness of subconscious minds that were created by clean, wholesome, prenatal and postnatal suggestions. The nature and duty of the subconscious mind is to bring into manifested form every suggestion that is made to it by thought, word, and deed, and soon or late, every suggestion will be crystallized into outer form. There is nothing quite so repellent as the trait of uncleanliness, because it is a reflection of uncleanliness in the subconscious mind. The world can and will condone most every other fault before it will that of being unclean and careless about one's personal appearance. It is for this reason that most people pay such slavish attention to personal appearance. Unconsciously, they realize its power, but not understanding its psychology, they make a fetish of it instead of according it the proper place and realizing its relation to other accomplishments. Remember that for every fault you possess, the world condemns you, and for every virtue or admirable trait of character, the world applauds. And the reason so many folk, who really have worthwhile virtues, complain that they are not given credit, and that the world fails to recognize their ability, is due to one fact and one fact only, i.e., their dominant traits are not admired, and their dominant virtues are lost to view because of their glaring imperfections. In other words, their faults outnumber their good points. You cannot cover up from the world that which dominates your inner consciousness. You can never put anything over on the public, not even yourself, unless your dominant personal qualities are constructive. To be admired, you must do the admirable things and be admirable within. To be admirable begets admiration. It is because we meet with the approval of those with whom we come in closest contact that we meet with public favor generally. Friends, relatives, and acquaintances being the mediums which pass on our merits or demerits to the public at large. In return, we receive success or failure according to our qualities and their constancy. Success can only be gained through sincerity of purpose and strict obedience to psychological law. Failure comes by way of bluffing, handshaking, catering to personal appearances, regardless of taking other things into consideration and other destructive factors. Self-analysis will uncover the imperfections, and desire, decision, and concentration will enhance the virtues. Handshaking is affecting a friendship you do not feel, while friendship is really expressing an emotion you do feel. Decide this day to attract the admiration which is your due, not by depending upon outside appearances alone, but by being admirable, physically, mentally, and spiritually. One should be careful of one's appearance even to the point of being fastidious, but one should not depend upon that alone as a means of attracting the worthwhile things of life. Appearance is important, but to get the spirit of life is much more important. If you have been denied an education, you can decide to improve your vocabulary by learning to spell and define 5 new, constructive words each day, remembering that even words convey ideas to the subconscious mind, which will begin to crystallize into outer form as soon as your mind begins to dwell upon them. Begin with the first letter of the alphabet and continue alphabetically with your daily lessons in this respect. For this method will form at least one orderly habit and have a tendency to improve others. Just to concentrate upon words which convey a meaning of order and system will tend to make you more orderly and systematic, for every suggestion must eventually be expressed into outer form, and whatsoever the mind dwells upon must become manifest in the life in some condition of good or evil, according to the quality of the thought. Cleanliness and order are qualities which will crystallize into good. Study your own vocabulary and take note of the nature of those words which comprise the larger part of it. The nature of one's vocabulary is an indication of the dominant traits, convictions, and habits of subconscious activities. It will pay you to study your own vocabulary and add to it those words which will at least cause its dominant activity to be constructive. Some men express profanity with almost every sentence, and yet many of them are not naturally profane, but most of them have been closely associated with minds whose dominant traits are profane. Not taking the time to read worthwhile books, yet the reading of books act upon and give constructive suggestions to the subconscious mind in the same way that association with the author would do, or to study subjects which will impress their subconscious minds with constructive ideas, they naturally express profanity. Reading good books is the same as personal association with great people, for are not books the product of their minds? They are the very philosophy, the sole expression of people who have used that method of exchanging confidences with the world. When you read an author's book, you commune with the soul of him. By your own mental reactions as you read, you exchange confidences with him, which is the same as close, intimate association with him. You can decide to improve your English by reading classical books and observing the arrangement of words in their relation to each other, and then expressing your thoughts in like manner. You can decide to keep your body and clothes beautifully clean, remembering that cleanliness is godliness, which means that you must be clean if you wish to create perfect conditions, for God creates only that which is perfect. If to be clean is to be godlike, then being clean is to be powerful or full of power. The whole world admires one who is immaculate for your thoughts of cleanliness, reach to every other center of consciousness, the thought being instantaneous and universal, and influences each center even to greater cleanliness and reacts upon your own affairs as well. Even though your own clothes are of poor quality or shabby, you can have them in good taste, clean and pressed. I know a young man who has worn his one and only best suit for 2 years and still has this compliment frequently passed about it. That suit looks like $1 million. Who tailored it for you? And this, where did you get the new suit? It looks wonderful and fits you like $1 million. The secret is that he never wears it without it being pressed, and it is cleaned quite often. Your decision will bring you friends or enemies, will make you loved or hated, will attract to you poverty or riches, fame and infamy, all according to your initial impulses or motives, your method of thought projection, and the quality of your concentration. Let the love of seeking another's good, as well as your own, guide the making of all your decisions, and be your method of projecting your decisions into the magnetic sea of ether about you. Let love, truth, faith, gratitude, and praise be the qualities of your consciousness during your periods of concentration. Then, as Kipling says, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. Chapter 3. How to gain a response from the subconscious mind. To gain a response from the subconscious mind is the grand finale in demonstration, the third and last mode of activity in the manifestation of desire. The subconscious mind is the servant of the conscious mind and of the superconscious mind as well. It is directed and controlled by the suggestion of each, which suggestions are given verbally, physically, mentally, and veiled. The subconscious mind never adds to nor takes from these suggestions, but builds them into one's life and body in their entirety, just as received, according to the convictions, motives, and attitudes. For this reason, it must be appealed to in various ways, i.e., one must reach it with a desire which focuses the energy to be used in demonstration. One must arouse its interest through making definite decisions, which direct the energy already focused. One gains its response through concentration, which in its last analysis is mental picture making. And this not only gives definite impetus to one's energies, but impels the subconscious mind to act according to the final directions of the mental blueprints. These mental blueprints not only should picture the desire in its general outline, but should incorporate details clearly and minutely. However, this mental picture should never represent conditions as they are, but as they should be, always an improvement over present circumstances. If you continue to hold a mental picture of conditions as they are, conditions will remain unchanged. That is why so many people lead monotonous lives. The same old conditions remain the same year after year, until disintegration takes place. These people imagine that their environment cannot change through human agency. Hence, they do not expect a difference in circumstances, nor do they prepare for an improvement. They spend their time and energy in allowing their minds to dwell upon present conditions, and their mental pictures contain all the aspects of misery and imperfection, which could be eliminated with an expenditure of time and energy equal to that which is projected in the retention of past and present experience. Circumstances and experience must be transcended if one's mental pictures and quality of thought embody new ideas. God Himself will not prevent this transition, because change is one of God's laws, and there can be no progression without it. Yet we find the world over people who ruin health of mind and body through their constant opposition to this divine law. Everybody and his brother talks about settling down. They prepare for it, work for it, preach about it, and put forth every effort possible to make it a reality, condemning those who dare to be rolling stones. The advantage of being a rolling stone is that it acquires a polish that is often a means of revealing the diamond, which most likely would be otherwise hidden by the accumulation of moss. It also gains experience and knowledge in the school of life, which is analogous to wisdom and understanding. Fixity of life, a settling down, is analogous to disintegration. Most people think that settling down is necessary for the attainment of a definite purpose. That is just where they make their mistake, for the more definite one's purpose is, the oftener does one experience change. Sometimes we desire to make a certain definite goal our own. We decide upon what the ultimate of that goal shall be, and we concentrate upon it in an ideal form. Immediately we begin to meet new people. Old friends and acquaintances are separated from us, and we lose money. Old possessions that have been in the family for years, possibly for generations. We are forced into new situations and a rapidly changing environment, and each change is met with opposition, merely because we cannot see how these changes can possibly have any bearing upon the goal we wish to attain. Very often, change is looked upon as tragedy, persecution, and failures. But each change roused have a justifying cause, and the opportunity and benefit in each transition is the justifying cause. Nearly every person expends time and energy in the attempt to keep old conditions just as they were previous to the forming of definite desire and their concentration upon it. One cannot reach the subconscious mind, arouse its interest, and gain its response, and expect to go on in the old rut. One's definite desires precipitate definite changes, these changes reacting upon the consciousness in such a way as to inspire an improvement of purpose, thereby improving conditions. Clear visualization of an ideal condition in your life eliminates thoughts and mental pictures which might interfere with the development of your desire, and holds the attention of your subconscious mind until the perfect picture is complete, at which time subconscious determination takes the form of intense activity, and the picture begins to crystallize into material form. Specify just what your ultimate goal shall be. Then get into the right mental attitudes, cultivate the proper quality of thought, and fill in your mental pictures to the minutest detail, doing what you can in a physical way to make it a reality. Then you may be assured that the result will exceed your fondest expectations. The reality means real joy. Although one should never rest from activity when the first goal of attainment is reached, but should put forth every effort for the attainment of even greater heights. The subconscious mind of an individual obeys every dominant desire, endeavoring to bring it into immediate manifestation. That is why so many people are creatures of impulse, feeling a strong emotion at a certain time and never deeming it of any importance. They dismiss it from their minds. This intense emotion has conveyed some idea to their subconscious mind with a corresponding mental picture, which has been visualized clearly and specifically during the height of emotion, and later, perhaps when the incident has been forgotten by the conscious mind, they are impelled to some act that may seem to others entirely foreign to their nature, but due entirely to the past emotion and mental picture that was flashed to the subconscious mind at the time. The expression of emotion was a decided change from their regular habit of thinking, and brought into existence a decided change in outward activity. Concentration through the medium of mental picture making is the correct and easiest way. Always form a general outline of your desire as an ideal condition, filling in the picture to the minutest detail. When your picture is complete, hold it in your consciousness as long as you can. Even about your work or play, you can dwell upon some feature of the picture, holding the ultimate in mind at the same time. This method of always holding the mental blueprint in mind, no matter what you are doing, keeps your subconscious mind impressed with the idea that it must bring that particular idea into reality before working on any other. If you will familiarize yourself with the chemical elements of that which you are trying to demonstrate, the manifestation will take place much more quickly. Chemical elements constitute the nature of both organic and inorganic life. In fact, there is a chemical analysis to everything, and to concentrate upon the cell life of an organism is to precipitate it with much more expediency than otherwise. Chapter 4. How to reach the subconscious mind of another. How to reach the subconscious mind of another seemingly is the most difficult problem with which the new student has to contend in his experiments in applied psychology. For that matter, many students who are quite old at the game find mental telepathy a difficult feat, yet it is really very simple when one knows the ropes, as it were. Just a few simple rules will turn the trick if applied properly. Although in my study of hypnosis, I early learned the danger that might ensue from directing suggestions too forcibly to the subconscious mind of another. The new student is very apt to overdo the thing in his zealous desire to reform someone to his way of thinking, which may be, and very often is, just as wrong as is the way of the one he too freely condemns and criticizes. The only safe and sure guide is the psychological rule of conduct which anyone can apply. Wherever there is the most love, that is where you should be. Whatever expresses the most love, truth, and faith is the thing you should do or say. The really important factor, and the primary one, is to awaken the love forces of another and cause them to be directed to oneself. The rest is easy. This is accomplished by adhering steadfastly to the above rule at all times and in all places, and toward every human being. The average person rather prides himself on the fact that he is independent and doesn't give a tinker's damn what others may think of him or whether they like him or not. Nor does he go out of his way to do a favor, expecting an immediate return of the courtesy if he does. As a consequence, he is always at outs with relatives and friends, never hesitating to defend his attitude under the cloak of not wanting to be a handshaker. He finds it necessary to make new friends constantly, and often makes the statement that people only like one for what they can get. By his very attitude, he is forcing others to become what he considers beneath his own dignity, that of being a handshaker. For unless people cater to him, he thinks that they have deliberately knocked the chip off his shoulder, and he is offended. Having the subconscious attitude of being easily offended, being sensitive is the pleasing way of putting it, or rather covering it up, attracts to one the opportunity for expressing that attitude, or its attending emotion. It brings the circumstances that agitate that emotion. This chip on the shoulder attitude never gains the respect of anyone, and secretly antagonizes both business and social associates, quickly and surely, creating a repellent personal vibration that repels the good things of life as well as people. and surely prevents the easy flow of mental vibration from one center of consciousness to another. It is a psychological law that each human being with whom we come in direct contact becomes a channel of knowledge for our unfoldment, or an instrument of manifestation for our desires, the minute we begin to hold a feeling of sincere friendship toward them. You are not a sincere friend to anyone as long as you hold and express an attitude of suspicion, resentment, unkind criticism, or any destructive emotion toward them. To hold such a sentiment toward even one person makes it a subconscious state of mind that reacts at times, in places, and through people, wherever, whenever, and through whom there is the least resistance, principally one's immediate family, home atmosphere, and present circumstances and environment, all of which react to prevent one from reaching the subconscious mind of another at will. To be a sincere friend, one must love regardless of another's faults. That is the difficult part. And ignore their shortcomings, taking notice only of their virtues and admirable traits always. At the same time, one should hold a strong desire that the erring one will be guided by a higher power toward perfection in every way, while you do everything within your own power to inspire ambition and a response to the finer and better impulses that may prompt initial action, leaving the rest to subconscious activity. In this way, it becomes easy to reach the subconscious mind of another without any difficulty. Too often, when one makes an attempt to reach the subconscious mind of another, hypnotic suggestion is used, which very often produces a quick response, leaving the student with the impression that the method used is the correct one, because of the seeming satisfactory effect, but in reality causing mental and spiritual reactions that often act as a boomerang in the life of the operator, bringing much evil in its wake. To dictate to another, whether consciously or subconsciously, always arouses antagonism in the victim, reacting disastrously in the lives of both because dictation is hypnotic suggestion. The student avoids using hypnotic suggestion by applying the rules of conduct found in this chapter, and whenever he refrains from using dictatorial suggestion, which are one and the same. Many times men and women try to use hypnotic suggestion when attempting to reach the subconscious mind of another, for the purpose of compelling their love to be reciprocated. This mode of thought will eventually turn to bitter hatred for the one who used his power in the wrong way at the beginning. Jealous tragedies often occur as a direct result of this method of reaching the subconscious mind of another and dominating it to satisfy selfish desires. Constructive desire is a direct idea presented by one's superconscious mind, or God mind, to one's subconscious mind to be transmitted to the conscious mind to be acted upon consciously. When you arouse constructive desire and ambition in another, you have made the first demonstration of reaching his subconscious mind correctly, because your desire for his improvement, whether concerned with his mental, moral, or spiritual advancement, is a direct suggestion from your superconscious mind, or your God mind, to accomplish that result, and is directly transmitted from your superconscious mind to your subconscious mind, and thence to your conscious mind. And your conscious determination directs it to the subconscious mind of another, when in turn it is received by his conscious mind, where it is given recognition and becomes an impelling force, resolving itself into definite action and manifestation, which result is an objectified effect. The effect is always traceable to the cause, for an effect has all the characteristics of the cause. Once get the thought that all thought is instantaneous and universal, and travels faster than light or heat, and you have made advancement toward your goal of ambition, that of reaching the subconscious mind of another. Also, the same factors that enter into reaching your own subconscious mind, arousing its interest, and gaining its response, enters into the process of reaching, arousing the interest, and gaining the response of another subconscious mind, i.e. desire, decision, and concentration. You should get into the reverent attitude by the process advocated in the previous chapter on how to reach the subconscious mind, then send forth your desire for the good of another in a simple, specific manner. Next, you should decide that the suggestion which you wish to make and which you wish to be acted upon is the best for the party concerned, that it is unselfish and will benefit him in every way, as well as the world and yourself. Lastly, visualize the fruition of the suggestion in an ideal form, and the result will amaze you. In visualizing the ideal condition to be attained, strive to make your mental picture just as clear in the smallest detail as it is in the main detail, and as nearly ideal as it is possible for you to conceive it. Because perfection is the only creation your superconscious mind can cause to manifest, the minute you get into an attitude of reverence, Your superconscious mind takes charge of your subconscious activity and directs and controls its activity until the manifestation is complete. To make your mental picture as perfect as you can is to work with your superconscious mind in the manifesting of your desires, while to make your picture imperfect is to work in opposition to your superconscious mind, delaying the manifestation and often preventing its realization entirely. However, it takes a very short time to accomplish the desired result, although the length of descriptive material would seem to indicate otherwise. On one occasion, I wished to demonstrate a trip home for my son who is very fond of little children, and in order to make the homecoming more real, I visualized us as calling on a friend who had a little girl by the name of Helen, who was just learning to talk. I also visualized him saying, "Helen, say Harry," and I made the words seem very real and distinct, even the tone of his voice. A week or so later, just after his arrival, we were invited to dine at the home of little Helen's parents, and as soon as the introductions were over, Son took the baby in his arms and tried to have her speak his name in the very way I had visualized it. Another time, one of my young lady students came to me and told me that she was very much in need of more money, that her salary was insufficient to meet her needs, but that her employer paid less wages than anyone in the city in his particular line of business. He also had the reputation of being close with his money. Every employer in the city, as well as her own, was laying off help, and she could hardly expect more money from that source. But she had given unusually good service during the time she had served him, and according to the law of justice, she deserved greater remuneration. I told her to visualize her employer coming to her at the close of the day and saying, "Miss B, in appreciation of your service to the firm, we are increasing your salary." 3 days later, she came to me for her third lesson, her face radiant with smiles, and announced that the evening before her employer had come to her, and in the very words which I had told her to concentrate upon, had told her that they were increasing her salary, merely adding the weekly amount which I had not specified, as I did not wish her suggestion to limit his generosity in any way. Some months later, she attended one of my lectures, and in talking to a woman of the audience afterward, she remarked that she had made every demonstration she had ever attempted. Her first demonstration in reaching the subconscious mind of another gave her so much encouragement and faith that she was never afraid to attempt any demonstration, and her interest to see how her experiments would react increased her enthusiasm to such an extent that it was like play to her. Sending mental messages and questions to the subconscious mind of another and having them received and answered according to your desires is one of the most fascinating phases of applied psychology. I use my knowledge of the science every day for the purpose of gaining information and knowledge in every department of my life. Not long ago, I called at my son's home, but saw only his wife and baby. During the conversation, I sent out the mental inquiry, "Where is Bud?" and went right on talking. There was a lull in the conversation for a moment, and then his wife asked, "Did you not see Bud? He just went out to do the marketing." At one time, I had a student in my home who was there for the purpose of seeing how I applied my knowledge to the everyday problems of life. At the same time, I had a friend and her daughter visiting me from California. Another friend had recently arrived in town and was a guest at one of the hotels. One evening, the student was entertaining a girlfriend from another city, and I had them all as guests for dinner. The student and her friend were to spend the evening motoring and had begged me to accompany them. However, when she saw that the rest of my guests did not have any other engagement and had planned to spend the evening with me, she was quite disappointed and asked me if I could not make the demonstration to go with the motoring party, for all of them wanted me to do so. When they left the house to get the rest of their party, I told them to return for me in 1 hour. While we all sat in the living room visiting, I was silently sending out the message to them that something more interesting was desired by each one. In about 15 minutes after I had sent the first telepathic message, the daughter said that she had just remembered an important letter that had to be written that night, so she excused herself and retired to her room. Shortly afterward, her mother said that she felt greatly in need of rest, and if I did not mind, she would excuse herself for the evening. Following her departure, the other friend said that he was so sleepy that he could hardly keep his eyes open and must say, "Good night." Not one of them knew that I had been asked to join the motoring party, and I did not demand any particular mode of action for them, nor make one affirmation in my own behalf. I simply held a mental picture of myself in the automobile with the other group of friends, and sent a mental message that each friend who was with me had something of greater interest to do than visiting with me. This became an individual desire in each of my friends, and was soon expressed and acted upon, leaving me ample time in which to dress before my other friends returned for me. When making the attempt to reach the subconscious mind of another, one should be actuated by unselfish motives, only a feeling of kindly interest and friendship governing the situation and those connected with it. Several years ago, my son, then a lad of 15 years, and myself were attending a performance at the theater. Son saw an acquaintance whom I had never met in a box and wished him to invite the two of us there. I had taught Son to send telepathic messages, and in less than 3 minutes the boy had attained his purpose, and his acquaintance caught his eye and nodded to him, then called his wife's attention to us. The theater was packed, and we were on the main floor, and it was a difficult matter to distinguish anyone from the distance of a box. But you may see that reaching the subconscious mind of another is very easy of accomplishment when even a child can practice it. It will be very interesting in your practice of reaching the subconscious mind of another if you will use your powers by silently directing others to take particular notice of you at the theater, in cafes, or even on the street. I no longer spend my time and energy in this way, but did when I first began my study. One day in particular, I saw a friend on the street some distance ahead of me. It was about noon or shortly thereafter when the traffic is heaviest, and I could not walk fast enough to catch up to him, so I simply spoke my friend's name mentally and affirmed that it would be of mutual interest for us to meet, and there could be no better time than the present, which is always now. My friend kept glancing back as though sensing some presence directly behind, and finally stopped, turned directly around, and caught my eye. We were soon deep in conversation, and I remembered to send out my gratitude to my Creator for revealing to me the hidden secret of my power. If you would be the center of power, if you would develop your ability to project your thought and ideas at will, if you would gain the mental strength to enable you to transmit your ideas and desires to other centers of consciousness, exactly as you visualize them and receive in turn your answers, if you would receive wisdom, intelligence, if you would be unlimited in all you wish to gain, then love with all your might. Not one or two or even a few people, but be unlimited in your love for everything. Do not limit your regard or narrow it down to a little world of your own making, nor merely transfer your regard from one center to another, but constantly enlarge your scope of loving activities, cultivating the agreeable attitude toward all and everything, being interested in whatsoever comes your way, including all, excluding none. To limit one's love is to limit one's power and experience, hence, knowledge and wisdom as well as attainment. You cannot afford to be less than your Creator intended you to be, a center of dynamic power for good. Chapter 5: How to Heal at a Distance. This concerns the activity of the subconscious mind, which is a blind, unreasoning force, operating wholly by suggestion and building into the body and the life the result of every suggestion it receives, whether mental, verbal, physical, or veiled, and whether given to you or by you. The subconscious mind was created for one purpose only: to actually build into the life and the body of an individual every suggestion which it receives from one's own conscious mind, superconscious mind, or from the conscious, subconscious, or superconscious mind of another. That is why it is an unreasoning power. Given the power of reasoning, it would refuse to respond to thoughts which tend to destroy both soul and body, and thus the law of divine justice, which gives to each human being the privilege of being good or evil, would not be possible, and man would be governed by instinct alone, which would make self-preservation the dominant factor of human existence. This personal desire for self-preservation causes fighting and wrangling. Everywhere we see evidence of those who are willing to sacrifice time, energy, and even life itself for the good of others, refuting the theory of self-preservation, because progression, by way of service to others, is the keynote of human life according to God's law. When man lives by this law, he lives to serve others, almost regardless of self, thereby promoting his own health, wealth, and happiness, and giving life to the words of the one who knows, "He who loseth his life shall find it." The subconscious mind fulfills every desire of a human being unless the activity of fulfillment is interfered with through suggestion by the conscious mind. In its realm of activity, the subconscious mind delivers messages and influences others to the extent that one may desire, bestowing fitting compensation for that influence in the life of the one who is accountable for the initial impulse. Whether this compensation is good or ill is a matter of individual choice, and is commensurate with the influence sent forth. This marvelous power, constantly at one's command, used for purposes of bestowing health, wealth, and happiness upon others, reacts as power upon the operator, manifesting only good. Healing at a distance becomes easy of accomplishment if the spirit of psychological law is entered into. One must first reach one's own subconscious mind by the process outlined in a previous chapter on that subject. One must next arouse its interest, first by an intense, personal or conscious interest in the case to be reached, and next by following instructions contained in the chapter on that subject. Following this, one must gain its response by visualizing in a clear, concise manner the ideal condition desired for the patient, filling the picture into the minutest detail, and holding loving thoughts of healing in words so plain that they can convey no other possible meaning, after which, rest in the consciousness of faith that the result can only be as desired. The subconscious mind will immediately transmit to the subconscious mind of the afflicted one the picture you are holding as an ideal to be realized, whereupon the subconscious mind of the one being treated will imprint that picture upon every cell of his body, and automatic, rhythmic chemicalization will begin to take place, and complete recovery will be made according to the intensity and continuity of the practitioner's thought and his loving application of psychological law. One afternoon, one of my students, a man who had for many months previous been struggling with the conditions of poverty and hate in his life, came to me with a telegram he had just received concerning his child, who was being cared for in another city. The telegram announced that the child had become seriously ill with what the attending physician had diagnosed as a dangerous case of typhoid fever. He had ordered the child to be taken to the hospital on the following morning, and they awaited an immediate answer from the father as to what should be done. The father did not think it best to send the child to a hospital, where it would be completely surrounded by the thoughts of sickness and death. Yet he wished to do everything within his power for it. He also felt that the expense of having the child treated for weeks at the hospital was an experience wholly unnecessary and not in keeping with the principles of divine law. I told him that the first thing for him to do was to get himself into a reverent attitude which would calm his fears and put him on rapport with his child, then to apply the great law as I have presented it in the preceding outline. I also promised to help him and asked him to let the matter rest until morning, merely sending word to have them wire him the condition of the child when the doctor called the next day. I affirmed the truth about the child, that she was a perfect idea of God, therefore, she could not suffer for the wrong thinking of those about her. Divine love governed her life and her body absolutely, building every cell in the image and likeness of God. Those about her were also ideas of the living God and reflected harmony of mind and body. Love united their hearts in perfect peace. I then saw the child playing about the house as usual and visualized every cell of her body reflecting the words health and joy. The next day about noon, the father came to me, his eyes filled with tears of joy for the complete and sudden recovery of his child. He had received a day letter stating that the child had slept peacefully through the night and seemed almost normal in the morning. By the time the doctor arrived, she seemed her usual self, and upon examination, and much to his surprise, he could find not one symptom of typhoid fever. However, they were cautioned to keep her at home for a day or so to see if there would be a return of the condition, but she returned to school in 2 or 3 days, perfectly restored to health. This man and his sister-in-law, who had his children at her home, had been at war with each other for several months because of their hatred toward each other. She charged him with the deliberate intention of neglecting his children and had him haled into court, where he had been called to account as a vagrant. This had caused a feeling of hatred toward the woman, and it was this discord that was causing the destruction of the child's body. As soon as love potentized the chemicalization that was taking place in the cells of the body, New life was reflected at once, even to outward form. The man was no longer in fear of the court and his sister-in-law, and she no longer saw him as a man depraved. Needless to say, his life became one of beauty and service from that time forth, and he was enabled to do the work of two men. He became happy and prosperous as a result. The expression of love, truth, faith, gratitude, and praise, applied to every circumstance, condition, and person, makes one omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, and there is nothing that can resist this force. Love fills all space so that love applied to every problem will reach to the four corners of the earth. Love is omnipresent because love is God. Love is instantaneous and universal and interpenetrates every living organism. Love is the heart of the universe governing the circulation of all organic life, purifying and making perfect all of its creations. Chapter 6. How to heal a child by appealing to his subconscious mind. As a pitcher plant absorbs everything that touches its surface, so does the subconscious mind of a child absorb and become impressed by every suggestion given it by the adult minds with which it comes in direct contact, more especially that of the mother. As a child's body is actually composed of the mother's flesh and blood, so also is its body at birth the direct product of the suggestions which she has given it during the period of gestation. Hence, it is more sensitive to the mother's thought, being really but an extension of her consciousness, as well as her body. Every thought she thinks affects its body and its destiny. Every quality of her subconscious mind becomes a quality of her child, and directs and controls the operations of its subconscious mind, thus greatly affecting its life. This is why scientific practitioners always treat the child and the mother at the same time. The influence of the mother is the strongest power for good or ill in the life of any person, until the wife or husband takes her place in directing by suggestion the health and affairs of the individual. Even after marriage, however, if the mentality of the mother is more concentrated than that of husband or wife, she continues to wield a dominating influence over the child until her death breaks the connection. Occasionally we meet an ego whose desire for development by personal investigation is intense enough to break any influence of limitation exerted over it by the mother's thoughts. During infancy, and until the child is 14 years of age, any habit or quality of thought in a child may be changed into new channels of interest by a change in the operation of the mother's subconscious activities. This statement can be quickly proven by any student who will take the trouble to test it. If a child displays a condition of constant fretting and is to all appearances healthy, then there is a dominant quality of impatience operating in the subconscious mind of the mother. If the mother is sufficiently interested in the welfare of her child, she will make strenuous efforts to cultivate the agreeable attitude, no matter what may happen, thereby curing the child of fretting. It is a subconscious chip on the shoulder habit, but can be replaced by the agreeable attitude if constant vigilance is practiced. If the mother is indifferent to the welfare of her child, she will not cooperate with the practitioner. But, knowing the truth that love is omnipotent, there will be little difficulty in overcoming the condition if the practitioner will feel compassionate love for the mother as well as for the child. Then hold the ideal mental picture for the little one, never wavering in your desire for its reflection of the ideal you are holding for it. Your desire for its improvement must be more emphatic and clearly expressed than is the mother's dominant thought of impatience. There must be an ideal of an opposite nature given for its subconscious mind to work on. The picture of impatience is clearer than any other, or the child would not reflect that attitude. If the child persists in some vicious habit, remember that a child is absolutely ignorant of what such a state of consciousness means, or what the consequences can be. Why? Because the child, primarily, represents an ideal in divine mind, and the life of its body is the bloodstream of divinity. That is what makes a human being potentially superhuman, and the divinity of a child sees or hears no evil, nor does it know evil. Its human destiny can be overshadowed and influenced for evil by the vibrations of one who does see, hear, or know evil, temporarily dominating its conscious and subconscious functioning. However, the divinity of one who is spiritually developed, or whose superconscious mind is in control the greater part of the time, can and will transcend any negative impressions which may have been transmitted to the subconscious mind of the patient, and replace it with the Christ ideal in such a clear manner that the manner can be changed instantly. There is within the subconscious mind of every child an intense desire to learn, to gain experience, and unless this desire is repressed because of the destructive vibrations surrounding it, it can be easily guided into its good through this very desire. This desire to learn should be encouraged by every parent, for if adults would retain that desire, much of suffering and misery would be eliminated from human consciousness. When we cease to learn, we begin to atrophy. My little grandchild, who has just passed his first birthday, was weaned in one night by the appeal of his mother and myself to his subconscious mind. He is a very strong, athletic type, and has a will that is very individual in its expression. He has been a typical lollipop ever since his birth, his mealtime not being every 2 or 3 hours like the feeding of most babies, but one continuous meal throughout the day and night. He developed so rapidly that he needed more to eat than most babies, and all of our friends said, "Oh, but you will have a terrible trial when you undertake to wean him." I told my daughter that there was but one method to use: wait until she could decide upon the time, and then decide that he would be weaned quickly and without any trouble. I also told her that she must stand firm in her decision. Well, we decided upon the time. Bedtime arrived. The baby was bathed, and his night garments were put on. The mother took up some task in the kitchen, and I took the baby. He loves me dearly, and I love him, so he came to me willingly. I started to rock and sing to him, but he decided that it would be impossible for him to go to sleep without the breast which had never been denied him before. He began crying, but I talked to his subconscious mind all the while I was singing to him the lullabies he loved. Finally, he quieted down and went to sleep, and would sleep as long as I held him, but would awaken and cry as soon as I placed him in his crib. I worked with him until midnight, then his mother relieved me and attended him until 2 a.m. When he awakened, screaming at the top of his voice, after sleeping soundly for 2 hours, I gave him a cup of milk and took him to bed with me, holding him in my arms and crooning to him, the while I gave him the suggestion that he was no longer a baby, but a fully developed little man, with no desire for baby habits of feeding and acting. That he reflected divine wisdom, and could easily see that the new method of feeding was the only sensible way. Then, during the following day, we talked to him audibly, and we had no further trouble with him. The following night, he went to sleep as easily as if he had been weaned for a year. In the lives of my own children, there have been some wonderful demonstrations in which their subconscious minds have been appealed to, and a response gained in a most splendid manner. One instance in particular I recall to mind. My eldest son was extremely fond of swimming, having learned the trick when a mere lad of 5 years. He would swim whenever and wherever he had a chance. One day, while on a hike with some of the neighbors' boys, they stopped at a creek to swim. They had discovered a pool in it, which they considered deep enough to afford them much sport, and they tied themselves to the bushes on the bank to disrobe. They had a wonderful swim, after which they returned to the bushes to dress. As son stooped to pick up some garment, he ran a sharp twig of a tree into his eyeball. He hurried home, almost beside himself with pain. I examined the eye to see if any splinter might have remained, but found only a small hole which had been gouged into it by the sharp stick. The eye was terribly swollen and bloodshot. I bathed it in warm salt water and told him to know that the pain would soon disappear and the eye be normal by morning, that I would treat it for him. He tried to play, but his eye troubled him too much, so he ate an early dinner and retired for the night, to forget it, if possible, in sleep. I kissed him good night and told him that his eye would be better by morning, but if it was too painful in the night to call me. He bathed it before going to bed, and as a veiled suggestion to his subconscious mind, I laid a small gauze pad saturated with witch hazel upon his eyelid. During the night, I heard him groan 2 or 3 times, but when I went to his bedside, he was sleeping soundly, so I just touched him lightly with my right hand and poured out my love to him in an appeal to his subconscious mind to heal his eye at once. I affirmed that his eye, being one of the windows of his soul, could not be injured by mortal thought, that his soul, being untouched by negative impressions, must therefore reflect divine love and life, that his eye, being a physical instrument of his soul, must therefore indicate and reflect the condition of his soul, which was untouched by sinful thought and was indestructible. During the evening, a friend of mine, a man brilliant in the newspaper field, dropped in to see me and was horrified at my lack of fear for the welfare of my child. He informed me that the eye was one of the most delicate instruments of the human body and one of the most easily injured. He could see no sense in any of my arguments of truth and advised me in very strong language to take the boy to an eye specialist at once. When he was convinced that his arguments were making little or no impression upon me, he left, utterly disgusted that a woman of my caliber could display so little sense. Early the next morning, I heard son in the bathroom bathing his eye, which had been running pus during the night. However, the pain was entirely gone, and only a feeling of soreness to the touch remained. He bathed it frequently during the day with warm salt water, and gradually the swelling left. Only a slight discoloration remained by night. It was still bloodshot, but very slightly, and the second night it discharged no pus whatever. The second morning not a disturbing condition remained, except the hole in the eyeball, and that had almost disappeared. By the third night not a vestige of the injury remained, and the eyesight was not impaired in any way. Last winter, both of my sons had their great toes mashed flat by the fall of a heavy Presto light tank. After bathing the feet in hot water for perhaps half an hour, I bound a gauze pad saturated with witch hazel on each of the toes, and then affirmed the truth for them. I told them to hold firmly the mental picture of a perfect healing for their toes. The eldest son said that all he was afraid of was that he would lose the nail on his toe, as it was almost off. I told him there was absolutely no reason why he should, for his subconscious mind was just as capable of mending the nail as it was of healing the cell life of the flesh. Besides, it was his subconscious mind that built his entire body, and it was surely capable of repairing it. I worked for them for quite some time before I retired for the night, and the acute pain had left by morning. The toes were sore, as they had been mashed almost to a pulp. I dressed the toes to protect them from the rubbing of the shoes, and they went to work as usual. The following night, in reply to my query as to the condition of the toes, I was informed that they were still sore, but were healing rapidly. The toes were not mentioned for several days when I was informed that the healing had been complete and the nails were as solid as they had ever been. A slight discoloration remained under the nail of the one who feared that he would lose it. This discoloration remained for about 10 days, but disappeared without any bad results. Chapter 7. The Subconscious Mind and Creative Work. Your subconscious mind is your creator. It creates under your direct control and supervision. It was given to you for your exclusive use in making your earthly existence a huge success. You have but to direct and control it properly, and you will be rewarded with health, wealth, and happiness. Your heaven will be realized right here on earth. Because of the power vested in your subconscious mind, you can create for yourself a place of power, a world of grandeur, a haven of peace and joy. And what is more, you can travel the road of understanding all the way to your goal, maintaining the victorious attitude every step of the way, reaching it triumphant. You are the sower and the reaper. If you sow golden grain, yours will be a rich harvest. If you sow tares, you will reap bitter disappointment. So choose now, this day, what shall be the nature of your harvest, and then sow the sort of seed that will produce the kind of grain you will be glad to garner. Your subconscious mind will follow your conscious direction in the minutest detail, producing manifestations after your own patterns, or mental blueprints, never adding to nor taking from the working plans you have given it. The material used will be of your own manufacture. Consequently, the result is within your own scope of activities. To become great is the secret desire of every human being. This desire is a part of God's plan for the perfecting of His universe. God created human beings as co-creators with Him, that the universe might be made perfect. He designed each one for leadership, that the great work of evolution should be carried on, that the perfection of life and love should be made possible through the cooperation of God and man. You have but to get in tune with this great, tender, and wise universal oversoul, and your place and work in the world will be revealed to you at once. You are being paged by the great megaphone of God, the megaphone that is operated by the power of angels in the Hall of Wisdom. You are being called now to take your place and assure your duties of leadership, that advancing civilization may be directed properly in that school of life. When you answer that call, by making a firm decision to do the splendid things you desire to do, you start the wheels of fame and fortune in motion, and soon or late you will ride with them in a chariot of gold fashioned by your own efforts. In this chariot, you will ride straight to the goal for which you were intended from the beginning. You cannot hear the voice of God calling, night and day, until you decide to leave all else and follow the divine urge within your own soul. Then, like a clarion call, will it be heralded to the four corners of the earth that you are one of the elect. And every constructive force in the universe will immediately unite with you, lending you every aid necessary for the completion and fruition of the noble work which has been assigned you. You will at once enter a palace of wonders. New delights will appear at every turn. You will be clothed in garments of power, and jewels of attainment will glitter and glow in the light of illumination from within. Is it all not worth your while? Why do you lag and hesitate when before you is such a panorama of gorgeousness, and at your feet only the gall and wormwood of broken hopes? The emptiness of gaudy baubles, which reflected the mirage of selfish dreams and sensuous pleasures, have proven themselves to be only will-o'-the-wisps that have led you into quagmires of doubt and fear. It is because you do not tune in and respond to the call that your life is such a bitter struggle, with heartache and trouble with your close companions, while loneliness and misunderstanding fill your days and nights with anguish. Listen to that call and answer it now. For now is the eternal reality of life. Throughout all eternity, now is the only opportunity you will ever have. You are creating success or failure now by your decision to act, or by your indecision, which amounts to a refusal to act. Like the network of roads on an automobile map, leading to various points or destinations, some good, others better, still others designated as official highways, but one and one only, known far and wide as the King's Highway. So there are various roads leading to one's goal, but only one King's Highway. The road you shall travel is left to your own choosing. Will you choose El Camino Real, or an uncharted trail where brambles and boulders block your way at every turn, where, with torn and bleeding feet, you stumble on, sometimes in darkness, always in doubt as to where you are going, feeding on the husks of dead desires as you journey on, making such slow progress that many times you drop by the way, discouraged and forlorn? Till at last, when you have reached the goal of your ambition, the hoped-for joy turns to ashes, and you say to others, "Stay where you are." The biggest failure of all is attainment. Happiness lies only in the grave. But there is exquisite joy in attainment when the scientific method is used. Every step is fraught with anticipated victory, the thrill of glorious fulfillment which awaits your conscious, continued effort. However, to the victor only belongs the spoils. Hence, it is necessary to improve oneself in every possible way that one may overcome each obstacle. Victory in the battle of life does not belong to one who is low and mean, no matter how persistent the effort put forth. Lasting success can only be built upon the foundation of sterling character. If, when occasion arises, no matter how small or seemingly unimportant the occasion is, you take the petty attitude, it will be checked up against you in your ledger of attainment, and when the day of reckoning comes, you will either find yourself a success or failure, according to the amount of mean and petty deeds which you have in the debit column, or the number of good deeds which you may have to your credit. Each thought, word, or deed produces profit or loss, assets or liabilities, and the kind or quality of each becomes crystallized into outer form. Each thought, word, or deed acts or reacts for or against you and your ultimate desire, preventing your progress or becoming a stepping stone for your advancement. We often read of wonderful people who were never appreciated until after their deaths, and whose lives were spent in bleakest poverty and abject misery. They were cheated out of the joy which could have been theirs in life because of their subconscious attitudes and convictions toward the world in general, and people in particular, never realizing the vast importance in creative work of keeping in close touch with other human beings, helping, encouraging, being a sincere friend to all as they journeyed along the pathway of attainment together. The world did not know them because they were so unsocial that they made very few personal friends, and many of those they did make were no credit to the world or to themselves. Personal ties of relationship became bonds of discord, and the biggest aid in creative work, which is human friendship and association, was put out of their lives in order, as they thought, that they could devote every moment to their chosen work. Often, too, that superiority complex has been a dominant factor in their failure. If we take people into our lives in the right way, getting under their skin, so to speak, they will not only act as direct helps in our creative work, but will become personal advertising for us after our work is finished, heralding to the world at large our personal worth and the importance of our message. Their work is thus made just as important as our own, for they are necessary to our success. Hence, there is and can be no superiority. Every human being with whom we come in close contact becomes a channel of knowledge for our unfoldment or an instrument of manifestation for our desires. The minute we realize this truth and become channels of knowledge and instruments of manifestation for the desires of others, teaching what we have learned of constructive knowledge in the school of life, and never being so busy or weary, but that we can assist some other to obtain his desires, that minute the habit of success takes form. Thus is our own creative work advanced and made possible. We obtain our desires by helping others to obtain theirs. That is the psychological law, and adherence to these basic rules of conduct are absolutely necessary, but there are also definite rules of procedure, which are just as important and easy to follow as the foregoing. The first one is meditation, which develops talent as definitely as association develops character. Those who have a set of fixed rules of conduct and condemn everyone who fails to abide by those rules, and who live exclusive lives because most people are not considered fit for them to associate with, are not really sterling characters, as they are often called, but only people who are carrying around a lot of second-hand ideas born of ignorance. The more one sees of human nature, and the more one understands of the great law governing human life, the more one is convinced that the race is progressing toward perfection, and that each has a place in the divine plan, and that all men are created free and equal. If there were perfect cooperation, every human being would take his place in life and assume his personal, domestic, and social duties. Because this is really true, the one who puts himself upon a pedestal and leads an exclusive, secluded existence is the biggest shirker of domestic and social obligations on earth, and the one whose greatest success will be taken from him just when he feels the most secure. How often it happens that those who have attained world-renown die ignominious deaths, alone and friendless. Much of their ability to do creative work was destroyed because they maintained the attitude that most people were inferior, that they and their families, or possibly a few others, were alone entitled to a place in the Hall of Fame. Whatsoever the mind dwells upon must become manifest in the life in some condition of good or evil, according to the quality of the thought. One's mind dwelling subconsciously upon the inferiority of others eventually produces inferiority in one's own work and attainment, or creates the impression in the minds of others that it is inferior. Nothing comes back to an individual that has not first been projected to others by his subconscious mind. When we help others to advance, we are according them a place in the universe as well as ourselves, and proclaiming their worth to the world, and this activity on our part sets in motion the law of compensation or reciprocity, which operates in our behalf. Success built on such a foundation of cooperation cannot topple and fall. No matter what you wish to give to the world as your message of divine power or human accomplishment, whether as an artist, a musician, a writer, lecturer, sculptor, builder, etc., you will find that an inner consciousness of joy and love will bring your desire into manifestation much sooner than you could accomplish it otherwise. You must not only love the message you have to deliver, but you must also love the world enough to feel genuine joy in delivering that message. There is an old Sunday school song which you can sing the while you work or play, and which will tend to give you that inner consciousness of joy and love that is so necessary to your demonstration. I love to tell the story. Your message is telling the story to the world of the great power of God and His love working through you, as the God-chosen channel of achievement for the advancement of yourself and the race. And this song carries with it a powerful vibration, for it expresses the soul longing and desire of thousands of other human beings to give out to the world what they have discovered about this God-given power, which is bestowed upon all without stint or favor. You avail yourself of this power as soon as you begin to express those hidden longings and desires to be of some value to the world, and so justify the fact of your existence by obeying that inner urge, that divine urge within the secret recesses of your soul. You can be great, and you can be just as great as you wish to be. And you can be great in just the particular way in which you wish to be great. But you can only be really great by one process, and that process is to express scientifically, in thought, word, and deed, that creative genius which crystallizes into concrete form as soon as you express to the world the divine urge which is. Your ability for creative work is in proportion with your sincere desire to give your message to the world. And in doing this you accomplish more than mere fame and fortune, with the expression of your talents, abilities, and energy. Along a given line of endeavor, you release stored-up life energies which throw off the fetters of parental, prenatal, and postnatal suggestions that have been the possible source of your ill health and past failure to succeed, thereby gaining the soul freedom which you have longed to possess. No more will your days and nights be made dismal by the haunting fear of wretchedness and failure. No longer will you drag through the day thinking of your work as the greatest possible drudgery, with never a moment or an hour to do with as you please. But your body will instantly become buoyant with the release and flow of new energy through your veins, new resilience in your muscles, a new light in your eyes, which will arouse ambition in others, and a tireless energy that will cause you to undertake new tasks and responsibilities with a fearlessness born of understanding. Your creative work also has a survival value that will eternally add to the inspiration of those who will carry on, and which will follow you in other incarnations, making the way smoother and achievement easier of realization as you continue your journey along the pathway of evolution. The survival value of your creative work is determined by the actuating motive of every thought, word, and deed, just as your ultimate success is determined by that same process. Another truth that is beautiful in contemplation is that every desire for attainment, every effort we put forth to achieve, creates a response throughout the world, and this response takes form in the consciousness of others as a desire to be supplied with what we are creating to meet their demands. In order to do the best creative work, one must be imbued with a desire to serve the world. The more intense the desire for service to the world, the quicker will the fruition of one's desire be realized. And this desire, followed by meditation and concentration, will begin to manifest at once. However, the manifestation is never complete until the height of your ambition has been reached. And even then, your activity to achieve should not end there, but the revelation of new heights to be scaled should fill your consciousness. Only so will the survival value of your creative work penetrate the ages, leaving to posterity a richer legacy than silver or gold. Then, the nights will be filled with music, and the cares that infest the day will fold their tents like the Arabs, and as silently steal away. Meditation is the heart of all creative work, and he who would create without the use of meditation will fall far short of his goal. Meditation develops talent and ability as association develops character. Nor can this fundamental truth be too often repeated by the student as an affirmation to stimulate a control by the superconscious mind, which is all knowledge, wisdom, and power, and which, when given complete control over the conscious and subconscious faculties, will overcome every obstacle, smooth every difficulty, and carry one to the highest pinnacle of success, using the conscious and subconscious faculties as able assistants and causing them to do the right thing at the right time. Meditation is a thought process by which a question is asked mentally and the answer received mentally. Its process of development is by way of attitudes, of which there are four, i.e., the reverent attitude, the questioning attitude, the listening attitude, and the receptive attitude. The proper practice for meditation and its attendant attitudes is treated in another chapter, so that little or no mention need be made of it here. When these four attitudes have been entered into, then all the impressions which come to one should be followed. Also, several times each day one should practice meditation, and each day the attendant impressions should be followed with quiet persistence, but without undue haste. The first questions to be projected by the student during meditation are: what is my place in life? What work am I best suited for? In what way can I best benefit the race? What is the first thing I must do in order to have my place in life revealed at once? Await your answers in a scientific manner. Go into meditation several times each day, and each day ask a different question about your work, your life, your problems, or whatever is of vital interest to you at the time. However, never use meditation for frivolous issues, or your power of omniscience will be destroyed. Daily affirmations should be something along this line. This day I am a channel for projecting more beautiful thoughts into human consciousness than have hitherto been expressed. This day, divine love has chosen me for a great work and is revealing to me now my place in life. I am, this day, a genius and celebrity in. Place the word which signifies your particular art in the preceding space. Do not think that you are affirming a lie when you affirm that you are a genius and celebrity in your chosen work, for God designed you as such, and you are, in divine mind, that which you wish to be. God, being perfection, can see nothing less than the perfect idea which He has created. Nor does He create anything less than perfection, and it is merely your lack of spiritual perception which prevents you from realizing your desire. You have but to open your consciousness to the illumination from within, and not only your chosen work will be revealed to you, but you will find yourself amid the glories of an enchanted world created for your enjoyment. It is your paradise, your heaven on earth. As we never come into truth because we are completely surrounded by truth, and we have but to receive it, so we never become geniuses in our creative work, but merely awaken to a consciousness of it. Progression, unfoldment, and its attendant success is but the perception of an individual. If we would completely open the doors of our consciousness to illumination and power of our superconscious mind, we would be so flooded with divine energy and omnipotence that we would take immediate possession of our birthright. Instead, we are so afraid that we will lose the little joys we have gained of past accomplishments or ephemeral pleasures that we open the door but a little way, preventing further ingress by stubborn resistance to new circumstances, incidents, and ideas, refusing to cultivate the agreeable attitude toward every condition, circumstance, and person. Yet our very desires, convictions, subconscious attitudes, etc., have all contributed to surround us with the very thing we oppose. In opposing them, we oppose our own desires, thereby preventing our advancement. One cannot rid oneself of undesirable conditions by opposing, only by ignoring them and expending time and energy upon attaining the desired condition. Opening the door of your consciousness to the illumination and control of your superconscious mind opens the door to your world, with you as its center or creator. Hence, you are at all times surrounded by the work which you are being called upon to do, your creative work or your work as a creator, but your lack of spiritual perception prevents your realization. You continue to cling to the ideas of the conscious mind, which tells you that your supply cannot and will not be met if you listen to the inner urge, and at once begin to assume your duties as a creator, but that there is only one way to bring home the bacon, and that is by doing manual labor which is distasteful to you. Distasteful because you are devoting your God-given time and energy to expressing the ideas of someone else, when you should be devoting that time and energy to the expression of your own ideas. This is the only true creative work. You may think that you are doing creative work when you are bringing into manifested form the ideas of other men and women. But you are only doing creative work when you are bringing your own ideas into manifested form. It is for this reason that the great mass of humanity, commonly designated as labor, is constantly on the verge of revolution. Deep in the soul of the mass throbs the great heart of God, urging, impelling the mass onto freedom. It is the recognition of this divine impulse to create a greater destiny that urges onto freedom, even at the cost of life, the seething, surging waves of struggling humanity. It is the injustice of materialism in which it is steeped that causes the individual unit, and the mass as a whole, to interpret that divine urge as a natural desire for self-preservation. Yet, out of the struggle comes an improved condition even though the individual is often destroyed. So we, as individual units of the mass, by answering the call that bids us arise to our God-given supremacy of materialism and its limitations, not only gain our own freedom by so doing, but lend a hand toward freedom for the mass. By beginning to express our own ideas in creative work, we not only unfold our own destinies, but take our places in the mass as living examples of God power invested in the individual for the purpose of carrying on the great work of evolution, inspiring the mass thereby to greater effort in their own behalf and that of their struggling brothers, leading them forth from hopeless despair into happiness by teaching them the laws governing human life. This we cannot do until we ourselves have demonstrated a bigger success, a greater freedom, a definite goal of achievement. This day I take possession of my divine heritage, which includes my rightful place, my creative work, and perfect harmony in every department of my life. This day, and every day hereafter, I am making rapid advancement toward the goal of my desire. I am inseparably united with divine love, wisdom, and power which expresses through me now, making me a genius and celebrity in my chosen field of endeavor. The following affirmation by John Duncan Quackenbos, A.M., M.D., is very splendid indeed. I will develop talent along specified lines. I will draw spontaneously upon the resources treasured in my higher being for creative work in the normal sphere. Affirming one's unity with divine power, listening to the voice within the silence of the heart is very aptly expressed in the following words by the same author. Cultivation of the suggestibility to the influence of God is thus cultivation of individuality. What is more necessary in creative work than individuality? The incoming of God and the outgoing of noble effort stimulated thereby embodies real creative work. A subconscious desire can be constantly expressed in the following form. O God, open the storehouse of thine infinite wisdom to my view, that I may reveal to a waiting world the hidden beauties of thy kingdom, in creative work that will live through the ages. Chapter 8. The Subconscious Mind and the Habit of Succeeding. You have often heard the adage, practice makes perfect, and this applies to the habit of succeeding as well as to other departments of one's life. Ultimate success, or the attainment of one's goal, is the habit of being successful in the minor affairs of life. Success comes as a steady progression and is gained by constantly overcoming obstacles that arise to block one's way. It does not come quickly as so many people suppose, but is a constant preparation and striving for something larger and quite beyond the present field of activity and attainment. Success gained by any other method is evanescent and brings very little enjoyment with it. I know a couple who have gained the reputation of being tremendously successful. True, they have gained money. Dun and Bradstreet rate them at nearly $1 million. To my mind, they are sad failures, for they have neither love, health, happiness, nor have they the ability to enjoy good literature and intellectual pursuits. The spiritual life does not appeal to them, nor have they the poise that comes from the habit of concentration or continuity of thought. Consequently, every new experience is opposed, and there is always a fly in the ointment until they are literally torn to pieces physically, employing a physician who is at their beck and call night and day. One or the other is in the hospital nearly half of the time. Business worries keep them on the point of nervous prostration most of the time, and quarreling over what the other spends for personal adornment the rest of the time. They are so lacking in a knowledge of the laws governing human life that it is impossible for them to get the good of their wealth or to spend it constructively, that others may enjoy its benefits. They have the habit of making money, but they do not have the habit of succeeding. There is a vast difference between the two methods of activity. There are many people who have gained the sort of success that the above-mentioned couple have attained, but that is only one phase of success and is a forced condition, not the result of the success habit. True success is the steady, gradual unfoldment of latent powers, abilities, and qualities, which, when unfolded, attract a success both diversified and lasting. It is the habit of eliminating faults and imperfections in every department of the life, replacing them with virtues, improvements, and admirable traits and mannerisms. Even the smallest personal improvement or admirable trait enters into forming the habit of success, for one must succeed in the little things of life, before one can succeed in the big things. For after all, success is but mastery. One must cultivate the habit of mastery in the small things, which amounts to being equal to all occasions, in order to be master in the great experiences of life. When this habit is once formed, one will find little or no difficulty in getting whatever one goes after, and that spells success with a big S. Every destructive thought, no matter how trivial, repels the good in every department of life. Every virtue, every admirable trait, every improvement attracts the good in every department of human endeavor. This day, get by yourself. Go into the closet, so to speak, and enumerate your faults and shortcomings, your weak points. Then catalog your virtues, your admirable traits, your strong points of conduct. After comparing the two lists, the balance will be for or against you, and so you can analyze this day personal assets or liabilities. It is a good plan to do this every day, for each day of striving to attain will reveal the hitherto hidden forces which have been operating in your behalf or combining to cause your downfall or failure. The stumbling blocks can thus be removed and stepping stones placed in their stead. The habit of success is formed by striving to be successful in every department of your life. That sounds easy, and it is if enough attention is given to every task, no matter how small. You cannot afford to neglect anything. You are not a success, nor can you form the habit of being successful, as long as you fail in the little tasks which fall to your lot to perform. If you are a mechanic, and you wish to be successful even in a different line, you must first be successful as a mechanic. Your tools must be always in order, always sharpened and ready to use. You cannot scatter your working material about so that you must hunt for this and that, and ever hope to be successful. Endeavor to be perfect in whatever you undertake to do, and so unconsciously, and without seeming effort, you will form the habit of being successful. I know many women who fail to solve their problems readily, and who are continually attracting disagreeable circumstances into their lives for no other reason than that they are mentally unfit to receive the greater blessings. If they sweep, they are in such a hurry that the corners are slighted. If they cook, it is too much trouble to clean up as they go along, nor do they deem it worth their while to keep order while they are preparing the food. In every task they perform, their one desire is to get through, not that they may accomplish anything worthwhile, but just to be able to be at leisure. Yet they complain that they cannot have what other women have, and are quite sure that they are just as deserving. These women are not cultivating the habit of being successful in the common tasks of life. How in the world can they expect that the universal forces, which are constructive, can possibly cooperate with them, or bestow upon them the sweets of life, when they are so lacking in the virtues which would make them real magnets of bigger successes? Man is a triune being, physical, mental, and spiritual, and the development of each faculty, pertaining to the various phases of his nature, is absolutely essential to one who aims to be successful. The neglect of one or the other causes a lack to manifest in the outer conditions of life, and the effect cannot be remedied until the cause is righted or established. Those who fail invariably attribute their failures to outside effects, never realizing that the true cause lies within their own subconscious minds. The flaws and imperfections within, whether the origin came through prenatal, postnatal, or conscious suggestion, nevertheless create corresponding effects in the physical condition, financial affairs, and environment of an individual. These destructive suggestions are constantly forming the habit of failure. It is very apparent to even the most casual observer that the habit of failure must be changed into the habit of success by a gradual elimination of old conditions and a replacement of the new. A constant weeding out of the undesirable traits, while at the same time desirable attributes are cultivated in their stead, will produce a noticeable change in conditions almost at once, automatically and rhythmically eliminating the old habits of thought for the new. As a consequence, the greater the change for the better in the subconscious activities, the greater the change for the better in the material affairs. However, too much stress cannot be placed upon the statement that every change must take place in the subconscious realm before a manifestation can be realized. The subconscious mind is the seat of memory and habit, and no habit can be formed without its active functioning. Nor can any desire be realized without arousing its interest and gaining its response. It has a tendency to repeat any suggestion that has aroused its interest. You have but to make a vivid impression through conscious effort, and your subconscious mind will make it a reality. If you wish to form the habit of success, begin this day to improve your personal appearance by paying religious attention to the details of dress. Respect yourself and the world enough to keep yourself from giving offense in any way. When you dress to keep a business appointment, have your body clean, your clothes cleaned and pressed. If there are buttons off, sew them on or have it done for you. Have your fingernails clean, your shoes shined, and don't do these things with the conviction that it is all silliness, and that no one gives a hang how you look, and it's a darn nuisance anyway, for you cannot impress your subconscious mind with your desire to form the habit of success in this fashion. Go at it as though it were the most vital part of your engagement. Be interested to see just how big an improvement you can make with the material you have at hand, such as clothes, soap and water, razor, etc. This is improving the physical man, which is of as great importance as is the mental and spiritual side of your nature. Convince your subconscious mind by telling it that the world of business is just as much impressed by your cleanliness and neatness as is your social world. Then observe closely, and you will see that people notice the change by the remarks they make and the things they do to help you. Not long ago, a woman of my acquaintance who was striving to make a success of life, and who had begun by forming the habit of cleanliness and order in her personal life, had occasion to go into the home of a sick acquaintance and care for it, while the afflicted one was away for her health. Without a thought of what the neighbors might think or what the outcome might be, she thoroughly cleaned the place, burning all the accumulated trash and scrubbing everything even to the back stairway, which was used by other tenants in the building. The bedding was washed and aired, and curtains laundered and rehung. In a few days, a woman neighbor whose husband owned a carpet store, and who had observed the new activities, had delivered to the house enough linoleum to cover the portions of kitchen and pantry that had been neglected by the former tenant, with the remark that she had observed the thoroughness with which my acquaintance was cleaning the house, and that she wanted to help in some way. A short time after the foregoing experience, she presented my friend with a strip of new carpet for the hall. Wholly unconscious of the impression of cleanliness and sense of order which has being made upon her little world, this woman had brought a certain amount of success with her effort, which was evidenced in a natural way. So, as you progress in your effort toward perfection, if you impress your subconscious mind, there will be a crystallized manifestation with every effort, providing you are successful in making perfection result from the effort. A definite aim toward perfection along any given line always impresses the subconscious mind, and it at once begins to eliminate obstacles that might hinder your progress. Each experience will be a test of your determination to form the habit of success, and will, at the same time, reveal to you just how much progress you have made. Your mentality must also be improved, and the habit of being successful in mental attainments must also be formed. Watch your English. Learn to use words which will express your ideas in a specific, emphatic manner, and convey to your listeners a clear picture of that which you wish to present. Read, not merely your daily newspapers, and consider that enough, but familiarize yourself with the authors of good literature, both past and present. Force yourself to read the editorial pages in some of the leading magazines. You may not agree with the writers of such articles, but it will afford you ample opportunity for personal mental discussion and analysis. If you oppose the editor's views, go into your subconscious mind and determine whether you do so because your opinions are just the accepted, ready-made notions and beliefs of others, or the result of unprejudiced investigation on your part. Read at least one good book every month. By good, I do not mean a religious treatise, but something that will set you to thinking and arouse within you an ambition to investigate different theories which the author may present. Add new words to your vocabulary and use them whenever opportunity affords until they become habitual. Learn everything you can and master as much as you can until the desire to learn becomes a subconscious habit. This will soon form the habit of succeeding mentally, and success along other lines will be made easier as a consequence. The spiritual functioning of an individual must also be developed if a lasting, unlimited, and solid success is desired. There cannot be any sure nor complete success without it. It is quite reasonable to suppose, and is clearly apparent to the lay mind, that to have a complete success, the complete man must be exercised. As well try to change the universe by finite power as to develop one or two sides of a man's nature, letting part of him atrophy, and expect a complete success. And that part of him which is not exercised and developed does become atrophied from disuse, as well as from misuse. Not a little but a great deal is gained, in fact. Success in its entirety is encompassed by the superconscious mind, the perfect functioning of which is the fundamental basis of all true success. Man has three minds: conscious, subconscious, and superconscious. It is this fact which makes him a triune being, physical, mental, and spiritual. The conscious mind was created as the servant of the physical man, to see that he is clothed and fed according to customary and geographical surroundings. The conscious mind is the mind of the five physical senses. It deals only with externals and always reasons from without. It judges by appearances and limits its functioning to effects, never getting deeper than the surface of physical life. For this reason, it should never be given full control even of the physical man, for it has no conception of what is for his best good. It follows custom, accepts the ready-made beliefs of yourself and others as the absolute truth, as its reasoning power is limited to the externals of life or absolute materialism. It is the mind of hate, fear, anger, worry, unkind criticism, and all the lesser phases of these destructive emotions. When you limit yourself in any way, your conscious mind is in control, and whatever the conscious mind determines shall come to pass, unless modified or overruled by the superconscious mind. In other words, your conscious mind is the mind which makes decisions, although decisions are generally influenced by subconscious activity. For this reason, a knowledge of psychoanalysis should be acquired by every student of metaphysics. Every incident circumstance, as well as physical, mental, and spiritual activity, should be as completely analyzed as is possible for the student to do. Psychoanalysis is merely the scientific mental dissection of an issue, properly classifying and cataloging according to the subjects. A great many writers, teachers, and practitioners of psychoanalysis seem to clothe the science with a great deal of mystery, when it is just as easy for the lay mind to grasp the science of it as it is to acquire a working knowledge of any other science, and it certainly is a very valuable aid in one's effort to form the habit of succeeding. An habitual repetition of the 23rd Psalm and its metaphysical interpretation will help any student to form the habit of succeeding, for it incorporates every department of human life in its beautiful and scientific affirmations. The 23rd Psalm and its metaphysical interpretation. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Love is my protection at all times and in all places. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. Love giveth me an abundance of that which is good. He leadeth me beside the still waters. Divine love leadeth me out of discord into peace and power. He restoreth my soul. Love reneweth my life and strength each time I express it in thought, word, or deed. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. God created me to serve others in a big way that His word of love may find expression through my activities. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for Thou art with me. Even though my material desires burden my soul, my faith in love, truth, and faith will deliver me from every problem. Thy rod and Thy staff, they comfort me. The omnipotence and omniscience of God expressing through me fill me with eternal strength. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. My expression of love, truth, and faith will make each demonstration perfect before those who doubt. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. I radiate the divine qualities until my cup of joy is full to overflowing. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And the magnetism of God in me draws unto me and mine the blessings of life everlasting. Interpretation by Gertrude A. Bradford. In order to form the habit of succeeding, one must form the habit of being healthy, the habit of being clean, the habit of being orderly, the habit of being happy at all times and in all places, the habit of making and keeping friends, the habit of being at peace with relatives, the habit of harmony in the surroundings, the habit of attracting money, food, and clothes whenever necessary, the habit of getting whatever one wants, when and where one wants it. When these various habits have been formed, including the habit of acquiring knowledge, then the habit of succeeding has been formed, and one is a success. But one is not a success unless all the contributing factors have been acquired. The acquisition of money alone is merely one phase of success and is not even a contributing factor in the attainment of the real essentials. But when one has formed the habit of success along other lines, the acquisition of money will be the natural result, and very much like the legend of old, everything touched will turn to gold. As the conscious mind is for the direction and control of the physical man, so the subconscious mind is for the direction and control of the mental faculties, bestowing whatever knowledge is necessary for his intellectual development. The powers of the superconscious mind are for the direction and control of man's spiritual life and attainment, as man is primarily a spiritual being. An idea of God functioning with a physical body for purposes of human experience, which are necessary in evolution. This God mind should govern both the conscious and the subconscious activities, just as a general manager should govern the department heads and their subordinates in a business concern. Through the direction and control by the superconscious mind, the habit of success is easily attained by way of service, the two being synonymous. There can be no real success without service, and no real service without success. In conclusion on this subject, I know of no truer statement than, give to the world the best you have, and the best will come back to you. Remember that your best is a constant improvement of your physical, mental, and spiritual powers. These improvements always become valuable assets, never liabilities. Chapter 9. The Subconscious Mind and Health. For we are made partakers of Christ, if we hold the beginning of our confidence steadfast unto the end. While it is said, Today, if we will hear his voice, harden not your heart, as in the provocation. Today, your desire for health will manifest if you will not harden your heart in anger, hate, fear, etc. Hebrew 3. 12-16. In the above and many other places in the Bible, today is used to specify the time of man's delivery from sin, sickness, and sorrow, and as the time in which to assume his dominion over the perplexities of life. The subconscious mind must be made to realize that all power is yours today, that this day a sorrowful world is waiting to be delivered from its unrest or disease through the message that you were created to deliver, that message of health and peace which will bring freedom and joy to hungry souls who are eager to hear the beautiful story of love as presented by you. Ill health is just as great a sin as breaking any or all of the 10 Commandments, for it is the specific result of breaking God's law in some respect. The greater the physical suffering, the greater has been the disregard for spiritual guidance. The first step in regaining perfect health is to plainly admit that your mental processes have been operating in opposition to God's will. Don't keep trying to convince yourself and those about you, or those who may be trying to help you transcend conditions, that it is otherwise. For every minute that you are so occupied, you are delaying your release from the fetters which prevent your progress. Let go. Admit that your opinions, convictions, and attitudes toward God and man have caused the reactions from which you are suffering. Do not be afraid to admit that you have been wrong and that your life needs readjusting along entirely different lines from those which have governed your past. Big men or women are never afraid to admit their mistakes. Only the small-minded men or women refrain from confession where confession is due. Admission of one's mistakes in a sincere, agreeable manner, not a sullen, resentful attitude, acts as a sedative and prepares the functioning organism for purging the system of the accumulated poisons, which are destroying the natural resistance to the disease, at the same time arresting destructive chemicalization or disintegration, which is going on in the cells of the body. Good health is a creation of God and is gained and maintained by expressing the ideas of God, which ideas become the ideals of man. Every ideal in human consciousness is, therefore, but an idea of God-seeking expression through finite form, bringing health and happiness. The second step in the attainment of perfect health is to express in thought, word, and deed all of one's ideals. Do not hide them under a bushel, as it were, for one's ideals create the light which illumines all the dark places of life. An express command of God is, "Hide not your light under a bushel, but be as a light upon a hill that cannot be hid." When you become filled with the beauty of your ideals and the earnest desire to express them everywhere, you will become radiant with new life, because you will be so filled with God's ideas that there will be no room for the destructive thoughts which have been robbing you of your health and peace. This day, you can express some portion of your ideals, for every circumstance affords one an opportunity to express God's ideas concerning places, conditions, circumstances, and people. Begin to express God's ideas, purging your consciousness of your old material ideas, thus reforming your mental condition, and thereby reforming your body. God is the center of the universe, the heart of every creation. Therefore, He is at the very center of your being. And when you express God and His ideas, the outward flow of His Spirit cleanses, purifies, and reforms every cell of your body according to His plan, which means perfect health for you. His life, which is perfect wholeness, pulsing through your veins is strength, while every fiber of your being absorbs the new vitality and immediately reflects the change. Each human being is a magnetic center of consciousness so constituted that he becomes a magnet of good or ill according to the quality of thought, which he projects into the magnetic sea of ether about him. Love vibrations going forth into the world from one center to another not only positively heal the body, but restore harmony wherever there is or has been discord. Love thoughts sent forth on their mission of service bestow the blessings of life upon every center by their ministrations, and return to the sender a freight of blessings proportionate with those sent forth. On the other hand, thoughts of hate, fear, anger, worry, and unkind criticism, as well as their attendant phases of thought, projected into the magnetic sea of ether, act as curses to other centers, and return to the center a freight of sickness and misery, commensurate with the misery and sickness which went forth as a destructive emotion. Nothing unlike the quality of thoughts sent forth can be returned to the human magnet, and because of this truth, the conscious user of psychological law attracts the good in strange ways and often from previously unknown channels. Too often disease is the specific result of repression of the noble ideas and beautiful thoughts which are clamoring for expression, due very often to a feeling that others will ridicule the one who dares to be so audacious as to voice his own sentiments and good opinions. Yet, if one would but stop and analyze this sensitiveness, it becomes very apparent that such a feeling is aroused by condemnation of those about one, as lacking in beautiful ideals and thoughts. This and other hidden attitudes do much to cause insidious cases which baffle the doctor's skill. Why should others be so unkind as to ridicule those wishing to express God's wisdom? Man's ideals reflect the wisdom of God, being God's ideas. The subconscious attitudes, convictions, and motives, which are rarely, if ever, expressed, cause all of the insidious diseases which are pronounced incurable by the doctors, and which cause the victim to suffer untold agony for months, and sometimes for years before death comes as a relief. I have in mind a case which illustrates perfectly the above statement. 4 members of one family died within a few months of each other. 2 of the 4 were sisters, both of whom were married to men whose dispositions at the time of their marriage were splendid and lovable. One of the women married a man who had one son by a former marriage. Because of jealousy, she at once proceeded to cause a feeling of hatred between the father and son. Through the untimely death of the son's wife, 2 baby girls were left to the care of relatives. One was given to the maternal grandmother, and the other to the above-mentioned woman, her step-grandmother, who taught her to hate her father. She was taken to another city where she grew to womanhood under the impression that her father was all that was vile and mean. The young woman fell in love and married a young man who was splendid in every way. However, jealousy again asserted its despotic sway, and the step-grandmother now turned her hatred toward the girl and her husband, and did everything in her power to make them miserable. She also extended her hate to the family of the young husband, and demanded that her husband also direct his hate toward the same objective. She raved, cursed, and swore eternal vengeance upon them and their offspring. When the baby arrived, she swore that she would kill it. Then she swore that she would take it from them. She directed her thoughts of hate toward those she should have loved. And one day, when her hate had reached the highest pitch, she went to the home of the young couple with the avowed intention of creating a terrible disturbance. The mother of the young husband was a student of truth, so there was no display of hatred in her presence. But the young bride was called out onto the veranda, where she was compelled to listen to a tirade of hate for a few moments. But the vibrations of truth were so strong that the visitor remained only a short while. When she returned to her home, she found that her husband had died suddenly, and his death took place just at the time she was expressing the most hatred. The incident was a decided shock to her and arrested her hatred toward the girl, her baby, and her husband, turning it back upon herself. However, she continued to hate other members of both families and declared that she experienced genuine joy from her feeling of hate. About 2 months following the death of her husband, she became very ill, doctoring first with one and then another physician, none of whom seemed to know what the trouble was, but diagnosed it as acute heart trouble and complications. She suffered terribly from the complications which none of the medical men could define. She was unable to sleep night or day. For months she lingered on, unable to find any relief. Her suffering was horrible to contemplate, and she hardly resembled a human being at the time of her death. Her body had been so racked with pain and unrest. The ravages of hate had so destroyed her physical organism that it was impossible for the spirit to function longer with such a body. She gave toll for every thought of hate she had sent forth, and they all came back to her laden with the awful freight which she had sent to others. The husband had died quickly and easily, for his hate had been greatly affected to please his wife, and he had relented after each outburst. A month or two later, the husband of the sister passed on as quietly and peacefully as did the husband of the first woman. But before the funeral, his wife was stricken with a malady as mysterious to the specialists as had been the case of her sister. After lingering on for months as had her sister, she too passed on. Her hate, however, had never been so violently expressed as was the same emotion in her sister, and it was limited to a very few people, so that her passing was amid more pleasant surroundings. All that medical science could do could not even bring them relief, because even in their state of suffering, they would not change their old, destructive habits of thinking, and had to pay the extreme penalty for their sin. Hate is an emotion with many relative thoughts. Personal hatred is only one phase of it. There is hatred of creeds, nations, forms of dress, kinds of food, kinds of work, modes of travel, bobbed hair, whiskers, races, classes, snakes, etc. It does not matter in the least what the thought of hatred is directed to. The point is that it is a thought of hate which is being generated and sent forth on a mission of destruction, and which must return to the sender with the same force and quality with which it was projected. Every thought of hate injects enough poison into the blood to kill one instantly, if it were not modified by subconscious vibrations of an opposite nature. The dominant conditions of personal life are absolutely indicative of the dominant mental creations or pictures formed by the thoughts of an individual. If ill health rules the life, the love vibrations are directed for selfish purposes, limited to personal expressions, or take the form of jealousy, which is not love at all, but a phase of hatred and envy. Pain is always an indication that the hate vibrations are active both consciously and subconsciously. It is important that the individual keep in tune with the infinite source of all knowledge and love if the highest expression of life would be reached. Each person is a part of the divine plan, a brick in the structure of universal design, and a pulling away from the intended purpose must always result in discord of body and environment. One display of anger or hate will do more harm than becomes apparent at the time the emotion is expressed, because most people think destructive thoughts with so much more intensity than they do the love thoughts. Consequently, the vibrations are more intense and repel the good, whether that good is good health or good fortune. Love, like the sunshine, does not promote a luxuriant growth unless it is abundant and free. Mind is the chemist in the laboratory of life, and love is the chemical which potentizes all conditions of destructive fermentation. We must vibrate only the conditions we wish manifested. That is, we must not only think, speak, and live health, but in order to demonstrate health, we must acquire only constructive knowledge. We must visualize only constructive desires and allow our minds to dwell only upon constructive issues. 4. Whatsoever the mind dwells upon must become manifest in the life in some condition of good or evil, according to the quality of the thought. In demonstrating health or any other desired condition in life, this is the basic truth. Nothing can come to us or manifest in our lives if our minds have not dwelt upon it. Some there are who may deny this statement, but only because they have not learned to analyze. Scientific mind cure first locates the cause of the disease or trouble and then eliminates it. This is only be done successfully through analysis. There is a key thought and a mental picture to hold constantly in mind for quick demonstration, and these must express the ideal condition one wishes to realize. Just as the architect must deliver blueprints and specifications to the builder, so the individual must give mental blueprints and specifications to the subconscious mind if he would expect satisfactory results. The mental picture of the ideal condition is the symbol of the key thought and embodies everything which the key thought conveys. It is the working plan carried out in detail. Sometimes, however, the student finds it difficult to form a picture of an ideal condition, as when his body is full of impurities and he wishes to concentrate upon purity. Of course, he can visualize his body absolutely free from impurities, but a picture which will symbolize that condition perfectly will be a great help. A picture which will symbolize that condition more than anything I know of is the Easter lily. The picture of the Christ should be held in connection therewith. Affirmations which best express the key thought and the symbol should be repeated mentally and audibly in an emphatic manner. Love, truth, faith, gratitude, and praise are basic qualities of divine mind, and the expression of these qualities in thought, word, and deed make one omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, as related to human life. And these 5 qualities applied to any problem, either physical or mental, will effect a cure which will be permanent. Each attitude, conviction, and quality of mind is creative and creates according to its kind. The suggestions given to the subconscious mind cause disease, and the suggestions given by the superconscious mind to the subconscious mind cure disease. The subconscious mind is the active builder and builds according to suggestions received from the conscious and the superconscious minds. The superconscious mind is always in control, guiding and directing the subconscious mind in its building activities, whenever the divine qualities are being expressed in thought, word, and deed. Only as the divine qualities become permanent attitudes will a healing become permanent. Therefore, one cannot begin too soon to cultivate constructive thinking. The majority of people attribute the cause of sickness to one of 2 things, either food or climate, yet neither of these contribute to sickness, for they were created primarily to promote life. Everything that God created has a specific place in the divine plan and takes and maintains that place. All except man. Man only does not always live in harmony with the divine plan because he was created with an independent will and was imbued with the power to create according to his own designing, whether it be in accord with divine will or against it. To choose salvation or destruction in all he creates, using God's pattern, or its opposite, which is always a creation of the conscious mind, producing all the discords of life. God is love, and creates only that which is good. Therefore, God, love, is the creative principle of the entire universe. Health is good, hence it is a creation of love or God. Food was also created by God, love and good, for the nourishment of man's physical body, and it belongs to God's universe. Climate also is a creation of divine love, created to promote the life of man. Because everything which God created except man fulfills its natural destiny, so food and climate must fulfill their intended purpose, and in so doing must absolutely contribute to his well-being, which is health and happiness. Good or God never produces evil, and if food or climate were intended to destroy man, which is the highest type of God's creation, it would be evil. God is omnipotent, all-power, ever-present life, which is perfect health. Food is good and is a specific creation of God. How, then, is it possible for the creation to destroy its creator? Man only is destroyed by his own creations because he alone creates evil. And man does not create food or climate. He only determines the way in which he shall use them. Fresh air, sunshine, and food are all energy-producing factors and cannot possibly injure anyone. Besides, man was created to have dominion over all the earth and to dominate every form of creation pertaining to human life except his fellow men. Therefore, man was created to control every creation pertaining to human life. All was created for the benefit of man, and all was created to serve his interest. And no human being is expressing God intelligence or good intelligence when he reasons from without in instead of from within out. Every effect is the result of a definite mental state or cause, and every desire, motive, decision, or conviction determines conditions, circumstances, environment, and health. Every change in one's desires, decisions, motives, convictions, and mental attitudes causes transition periods in one's life, and these transitions affect every department of life, including health. Therefore, every change for the better in these mental attitudes tends to an increase in an abundance of health, wealth, and happiness. Every phase of thought which is not of love and love's attributes produces some kind of poison in the blood, which must manifest or express in the body in some form of sickness or disease. To the student of psychological law, it is easy to determine what mental process has produced a specific expression of health or sorrow. Take the condition of pain, for instance. You will admit that a surgeon can cut a human being in pieces without finding pain. In fact, pain cannot be found. The location of pain can be determined, but the pain itself is always elusive because it is purely mental. I do not mean by this statement that a mere denial of pain will eliminate the pain, but its cause is mental, and by eliminating the mental cause, you will eliminate the effect. There are three phases of thought which produce pain, and its intensity is always determined by the intensity of the thought. These three phases of pain-producing mental states are hate, anger, and unkind criticism. The direction of a thought is not the determining factor in results, as so many people suppose, but quality always determines the result. Anger is a phase of hate, and the diseases caused by the deadly poison of anger can always be reached by holding the mind steadfastly on love as a divine attribute, and through the perfect expression of love, mentally, verbally, and physically. If rheumatism, sick headache, or neuralgia is the cause of your suffering, you should at once begin to cultivate praise toward those for whom you are holding unkind criticism. You must learn the truth about them, for it is the truth which will set you free. The truth is that if they actually did wrong, it was due to the fact that they were under the hypnotic influence of strongly destructive ideas, and they were powerless to do other than they did owing to their ignorance of psychological law. Your criticism only holds them to their faults and prevents them from making reparation or compensation to you for any injury they may have inflicted. As long as your mind dwells upon their faults with an attitude of censure, you will suffer for their sin. It is you who are the real offender, for you are preventing their reform and punishing yourself through physical suffering for their mistakes. Should you not feel repentant toward those who are as ignorant as yourself of the great law? And should you not feel the deepest compassion for those whose mistakes were made worse through the fact that you allowed your mind to dwell upon their faults in a spirit of unkind criticism? The virtues of others are hidden from you because of your attitude of unkind criticism. But remember that God and His perfect idea of man are inseparable, and what God hath joined together, no power man can put asunder. Unkind criticism is trying to show up a wrong or error instead of trying to reveal the truth. In dwelling upon the imperfection of an individual, and not upon him as unchangeable good or as God's perfect idea. Fear is the cause of paralysis. The superconscious mind cannot know fear, therefore. Call the superconscious mind into control, and the trouble will be eliminated at once. When the superconscious mind is in control, there must be constructive activity, for God's perfect idea of man expresses the divine qualities constantly. The symbol of courage is Daniel in the lion's den, and this picture should be held firmly in the consciousness when demonstrating over fear, remembering that it represents perfect courage. In the cure of boils, abscesses, colds, etc., one must hold the mental pictures which are symbols of purity, for if impurity cause the trouble, naturally purity will cure it. The corresponding quality of every symbol must be cultivated. The quality of purity must be expressed in thought, word, and deed, for there must be a perfect expression of the curative quality if a perfect demonstration would be made. The key thought of purity is, God's perfect idea expresses purity as well as all other divine attributes. The symbol is the white lily. The symbol of infinite love is Christ on the cross, making his demonstration that love, expressed in the heart, is life everlasting. In the case of children, one should uncover the cause which will always be revealed through the process of meditation. Then realize that a child cannot suffer for another's sin. Cultivate the quality of thought and heart, which is the opposite of the one causing the trouble. The instant one's attitude is changed, relief will come to the child. It being a perfect idea of God must express the divine qualities of life and harmony in body and mind. Thoughts of hate, fear, anger, worry, and unkind criticism must be eliminated, not merely changed for the moment. Mental, verbal, and physical dictation must be purged from the consciousness, and the agreeable attitude toward every condition, circumstance, and person must be cultivated in its stead. A clear mental picture of the child well and happy should be held constantly in mind, while at the same time, simple things are done to relieve its suffering and add to its ease and comfort. Bathing its fevered brow or body, or bandaging up a wound with soothing salve, expresses love just as much as anything one can do. With every bit of food we eat, and every bit of nourishing liquid that we drink, and with every bit of air we breathe, we are taking into the system creative energy that would keep us young and healthy if we sent it back into the ether in the right way. We are all in touch with the same energy, we all breathe the same energy, but we transform it by our minds and send it out in a different way. This energy is like electric vibrations and leaves the body in 4 places. The spiritual vibrations of mind, also the intellectual, leave the body through the eyes. The physical magnetism leaves the body through the fingertips. The procreative energy leaves the body through the generative organs, and the disease vibrations leave the body by way of the toenails and toe tips. In order to facilitate the elimination of poisons from the body, the feet should be always kept perfectly clean, and the toenails kept trimmed closely. The fingernails should also be kept in good condition, always cleaned and trimmed. Whenever there is any functional disturbance, the fingertips should be placed very gently against the lower lids of the eyes in such a manner that the ends of the fingers point directly to the back of the head. They should be held in this position for a period of 5 minutes each day until the trouble is removed. Holding the fingertips to the eyes in this manner causes a perfect circuit of the physical and creative energies or electricity, and this circuit restores harmony to the various organs. Dr. M.E. Jurgen of Chicago, the eminent authority on food and physical chemistry, is quoted as the author of the above statement. There are also natural and simple methods of purging the system of accumulated poisons, which have been generated through wrong thinking, but these methods can only produce permanent results when used in conjunction with right thinking. 1 glass of cool water containing the juice of half a lemon and taken every morning upon arising will not only tend to purify the blood, but will, at the same time, create new physical life in the blood cells. The dictatorial attitude is the real cause of constipation and heart trouble, and when this attitude is entirely eliminated, the trouble will disappear and will not return. All opposition is really mental dictation, therefore, dictation and opposition must both be gotten rid of before a permanent cure can be effected. Chapter 10. The Subconscious Mind and the Cube of Undesirable Habits. Subconscious mind is the seat of memory and habit. It is controlled and directed by suggestion, and whatever suggestions are the most dominant, that is, whatever suggestions have been made with the most emphasis and are of the longest standing, become manifest and remain a fixed condition because they have become a fixed state of consciousness. And a fixed state of consciousness is called a habit. Most all of life is made up of habits, desirable and undesirable ones, but only those which react to bring us misery do we classify as undesirable or abnormal. To get rid of any of these undesirable habits, one must so impress the subconscious mind with new ideas in direct contrast to the old ones that the activity of the subconscious mind will be directed along the new lines of thinking. Its interest in the new ideas must be so aroused that its interest in the old ones will become uninteresting and be dropped as past experiences, just as a young child outgrows baby habits and never again reverts to them. New habits replace the old ones as new ideas arouse and focus the attention of the subconscious mind to the exclusion of the old. To fight evil, or to hate it, only intensifies it. In the elimination of undesirable habits, as in anything else, whatsoever the mind dwells upon must become manifest in the life in some condition of good or evil, according to the quality of the thought. Fighting a habit focuses the attention of the subconscious mind upon it, because the conscious mind is dwelling upon it, and it is intensified in this way. Fighting an undesirable condition not only intensifies it, but causes it to manifest only in a disagreeable manner, for the spirit of hate is the spirit of fighting. The only way to overcome or transcend any condition is to substitute that which is the opposite of the condition or habit to be eliminated. Yet most people try to change a condition or habit by fighting it instead of replacing it with something of an opposite nature. First, there must be an absorbing desire to change the habit, but this desire must be accompanied by just as intense a desire for the acquirement of a state of consciousness of the opposite nature. Most people try to change a condition without having anything better to offer in its place, their only seeming thought being a desire to get rid of the habit. And because they have nothing better than the habit to offer, they dwell mentally upon the habit. Night and day they fight it, and then wonder why they make no progress in getting rid of it. Even after they call upon a doctor for help or pay periodical visits to hospitals and sanitariums, they are often pronounced incurable and become resigned to their fate, making no further effort to eliminate the condition, but sighing and complaining that theirs is a hopeless condition, rather taking pride in the fact that no medical science has been able to reach their case. It is much easier to change a habit in one who is young, because it is easier for a young person to become absorbingly interested in new ideas. The mysteries of life and its unexplored experiences are fascinating to the young mind, and it is this very love for new experience which very often causes a young man or woman to repeat experiences which appeal most strongly to the senses. They, with their inexperience, think they have reached the heights of pleasure, and so plunge in where angels fear to tread. While the young mind becomes interested in new issues, the person of mature years too often thinks he has exhausted the fund of human experience, and thoroughly believes there is nothing more for him to explore or experience. He loses interest because of this attitude, and makes no further attempt to find anything that will be more fascinating than the habits which he has formed. He is most sure that he has run the gamut of human experience, and his present habits are the only consolation he has for an empty future, a future devoid of everything but duty and drudgery. To such a one, even the mention of the spiritual life is distasteful, because his only vision of it is of hymn singing and praying to a God who never answers prayer, and going to church on Sunday to meet one's hypocritical acquaintances and neighbors. The subject is fairly nauseating, and the mere mention of it fills him with the disgust of ignorance for what he thinks is the spiritual life. Sometimes his subconscious desire for freedom from his habits is so sincere and intense that it brings him in contact, by accident as he thinks, with a book, lecture, person, or incident, which reveals new thought, psychology, or some phase of metaphysics, and he at once becomes absorbingly interested in the spiritual life. Instead of the obsession of preparing oneself to live in the sweet by and by, he finds that the exponent of metaphysics gets right down to the fundamentals of human life and prepares in short order to live in the sweet here and now. He discovers in what way he is related to the great plan, and next discovers that there is no habit that can begin to give him half the satisfaction that is found in the demonstration of truth. Like last year's leaves on a tree, the habits that before seemed to bring him such intense satisfaction, while at the same time they added so much to his misery, are dropped without a thought of discomfort, but with a sigh of relief at their passing. I know a promising young man whose father was a habitual drinker. The home was stocked with good wines and liquors. Wine was always served with the dinner and on all social occasions. The young man was so thoroughly convinced that the mere presence of wine and liquor assured one of a good time that he was sure their absence indicated a dull evening spent with dull companions. His mother became a student of truth, and soon learned that drinking, gambling, etc., were not half as interesting as learning and applying the laws governing human destiny. She immediately began to apply them in behalf of her son, and her first demonstration was a loving companion for him, realizing that the ideals of home should be fostered, because home should be the center of all of our ideals, a hub, as it were, on which turn the wheels of achievement. Next, she aroused in him an intense ambition to accomplish something worthwhile in life. This ambition took the form of a desire to investigate electrical development and other related sciences. Very soon, the desire for past pleasures was submerged in the larger life he was developing, and his success became the all-absorbing topic of interest. The new development of his faculties cost as much money as had his drinking and gambling, but it produced a greater result for good than had his old habits. Remember that the determination of the subconscious mind always lies at one's point of interest. Whatever the conscious mind is really and vitally interested in becomes the dominating suggestion, which the subconscious hastens to bring into realization or manifested form. If it is the undesirable habit of another which you wish to change into a form of more constructive activity, your desire for their good must be the actuating motive. You must decide that nothing can interfere with the accomplishment of your design, then hold your desire steadfast and with a tenacity of purpose that no circumstance can alter. At the same time, divulge your desire to no one, unless it is to someone who will work in absolute accord with your wishes. Secrecy of desire makes concentration easier and puts more emphasis on the main points you wish to demonstrate. Expressing your desire to various people who make mental reservations and modifications through their thoughts of ridicule or criticism will scatter the mental energy which you have directed for the purpose of succeeding in the realization of your desire. They may place negative suggestions in the subconscious mind of the one you desire to heal in such a fashion that he will not be receptive to those suggestions which you are giving him for his benefit and improvement. It will be much easier to make the demonstration if you confine your operations to your subconscious realm, not allowing your conscious mind or the conscious mind of another to counteract your influence by the making of negative suggestions, which will tend to diffuse your mental energy into other channels of thought. The best time to make suggestions for the elimination of undesirable habits is after the subject has fallen to sleep, for, at that time, his conscious mind is not cognizant of what is going on about him, and it cannot interfere in any way. However, the suggestions can be sent to him at any time and will never interfere with his development, but will often awaken a desire within him to better his condition. Another fact to know in connection with this method of suggestion is that it is the conscious mind only that sleeps. The subconscious mind never sleeps. Because of this fact, it is easier to reach both the subconscious and superconscious faculties of an individual during their period of sleep. When treating someone at a distance, the difference in time should be taken into consideration, at the same time remembering that the night time of the body is the daytime of the soul, and that the realm of the subconscious mind contains all there is pertaining to human life, and that this all in the subconscious domain can be transmitted or crystallized into concrete form through the proper control and direction of conscious time and subconscious energy. Chapter 11. The Subconscious Mind and the Worry-Hurry Habit. Worry is a habit of directing the energy of the subconscious mind upon destructive issues. The person who worries merely allows his subconscious mind to spend his time and energy to bring into manifested form negative mental pictures because it has been given nothing better to do. It must do something, for it is tireless energy, awaiting direction into channels of constructive activity. It is active day and night, never sleeping, never resting, ever working to bring into manifested form instantly those suggestions that it is constantly receiving from one source or another. It is in constant contact with other subconscious minds, which, under your conscious direction, it can tap for your further education and benefit, or which will dominate it to your harm, unless you direct and control it by your desires, impressed upon it by your mental pictures, visualized in a clear, concise manner. Worry, being an undesirable habit, is merely misdirected time and energy, using your mind and body as a means of expression, and making yourself and those about you miserable. Worry attracts into your life those circumstances and people which will give you further cause for worry, unless you take immediate steps to control and direct your subconscious mind for purposes of creating health and happiness. You have often heard the old adage that haste makes waste. Well, so does the worry, hurry habit. It not only puts the physical body upon the rack of torture, but lays waste that domain of consciousness created for the improvement of your talents, abilities, and desires. After sending forth your desire for release from this most harmful habit, in a clear, concise manner for the wisdom to direct your subconscious powers along constructive, beneficial lines of activity, make a firm, emphatic decision to cultivate the habit of calmness and perfect poise in the place of the one you now have. Put forth a conscious, determined effort to get interested in those things which will help you gain your desire, remembering that mental and spiritual poise must be partially gained before there can be any expression of it. Trying is doing in part that which we desire to do. No matter what you are doing, learn not to make work for yourself. By this I do not mean to shirk any duty that may be yours to perform. Far from it. Duties and menial tasks oftentimes afford us the opportunity to develop the habits of cleanliness, order, and continuity, which are so important in the elimination of the worry, hurry habit. Plan your tasks in a systematic manner and perform them in an orderly fashion. Do not putter and fidget about your work, but let whatever you do stamp itself with your individuality. Of course, everything you do, even when you have the worry, hurry habit, carries the stamp of your individuality and personality with it just the same as does the other method. Every acquaintance and friend, as well as every member of your family, knows whether you have the worry, hurry habit and whether or not you lack poise. I know a woman who has the worry, hurry habit. She does nothing thoroughly, but continually makes work for herself with every task she performs. She is always in a hurry because she has more to do than she can manage. If she starts a meal and has vegetables and a salad to prepare, she will pare them in the sink and later have all the parings to pick up again and put into the sink strainer, making double work for herself. If she would practice putting the parings into the sink strainer to begin with, she would lessen her labor. When she dusts, she forgets the doors, mirrors, and windowsills. She will clean her dresser then, when she dresses to go out. She will use her powder puff in a slapping manner, causing the powder to scatter over the mirror and the entire assortment of toilet articles on top of the dresser. When she washes dishes, it seems easier for her to put all miscellaneous articles on the windowsill above the sink, from which they will have to be removed later and put in their proper places, than it does to place them where they belong in the first place. These and many other ways of making work for herself cause her to have the worry, hurry habit. She is always worried because she has so much work to do, yet she is happily oblivious of the fact that everyone who knows her has this to say about her. A splendid woman with a sweet disposition, but she surely is careless about her work and personal appearance. Everything she does has the stamp of her careless worry, hurry habit upon it, and yet she could just as easily acquire the habit of thoroughness and system. I know another woman who has a 3-story and basement house and 2 children to care for. She does all of her laundry work, washing and ironing of both personal and household linens. She does most of the sewing for herself and children, does all of her cooking and baking, is active in church and lodge work, being an officer in Eastern Star and Rebecca Lodges. She entertains beautifully, and her house is always in order from basement to garret. She never makes work for herself, but rather saves both work and steps by performing all her tasks in a scientific, systematic way, realizing that one can accomplish more in this way than in any other. It is a very easy matter also to demonstrate both time and help when one has extra duties at hand. In fact, there is no problem known to human consciousness that the application of psychological law cannot solve. Many women, who have certain necessary duties, always hesitate to have an extra guest for dinner or to spend the night or weekend for fear of the additional work it will make, and if such guests do arrive, these women make themselves and the rest of the family and the guests miserable, as it is plain to everyone that the entire order of the home is disrupted and everything thrown into confusion. I love to visit certain of my friends, for it seems to make no difference in the household regime. Everything moves along quietly, and we have a most delightful visit, and I always look forward to the next visit. I take pot luck, which is the best kind of luck, and I do not feel that I have made my hostess wish that I had remained at home, because there is so much more to do when I am there. I have another friend whom I like immensely, but I am always glad to get home after a visit with her, because she keeps busy every minute. I am there trying to make me comfortable. She hurries around and sends her husband to the store for delicacies that I may be beautifully served, nor will she allow me to help her in any way. When the meal is served, she watches my plate constantly for fear I will not ask for a second serving of anything I may like, and insists that I have something of everything that is on the table. This lovely woman lacks poise, while my other friend is the personification of poise, always calm and cheerful and ready to enter into any sport that may be proposed, and of the two she is the best housekeeper, as well as the best homemaker. She well knows that it is system which gets her work done and not haste or worry. Ofttimes, when I seemingly have had all that I could possibly do, some friend has asked a favor of me. In my endeavor to serve, someone would serve me in some way that would lighten my labor, and my tasks would be done as usual. When one learns that service begets service, much of the hurry habit will be eliminated. It is ignorance of divine law, and a poorly trained and directed subconscious mind that is to blame for this most disagreeable habit. Ignorance creates worry. Knowledge creates poise. Finish a task in a way that it carries the earmarks of art. In this way you will gain poise, for if you perform your tasks thoroughly and systematically, it will be impossible to rush through them or to worry about them. The worry-hurry habit always denotes ignorance and carelessness, ignorance of subconscious activities and powers, and carelessness about doing one's tasks thoroughly. Affirmations alone, while a valuable aid in learning the art of concentration, will not give one poise, which is the opposite condition of the worry-hurry habit, and is a necessary factor in the acquirement of health, wealth, and happiness. Always being prepared for emergencies helps one to eliminate the worry-hurry habit, for if there has been preparation for an occasion, its arrival causes no confusion. And being prepared isn't half as much effort as waiting until the occasion arrives, and then rushing around like mad in order to gain control of the situation. Prepare for opportunity. Prepare for happiness. Prepare for wealth. And you will be surprised to find that if you are extremely careful to make your preparations complete, the manifestation of your desire will take place at that time. The time of completion is the psychological moment. It seems like a strange trick of fate, but it is a perfectly natural result, for a careful preparation is continuity of concentration, and this must produce a satisfactory effect. The one thing that the majority of people always prepare for is a rainy day, and it always arrives on schedule, sometimes even before the final arrangements are complete. And just as surely will one's opportunity, health, happiness, or prosperity follow the careful preparation one has made for their manifestation. In this way, careful preparation eliminates the worry-hurry habit. This habit of careful preparation produces poise. Hence, careful preparation is an absolutely sure way of eliminating the worry-hurry habit. Giving one's superconscious mind complete control over one's subconscious activities during the period of sleep also is a great aid in overcoming the worry-hurry habit. For the subconscious mind works during the entire night on manifestations, preparing past suggestions, gathering the necessary material for making them realities in the material world, and finally arranging them with continuity so they will be in full accord with and reflect perfectly the law of compensation. Thus, one becomes the wise ruler over his own household, or the victim of an unkind fate, according to his scientific direction and control of the subconscious activities. Having the worry-hurry habit is a sure indication that one is a victim of unseen, destructive forces, which are governing the subconscious mind to one's hurt. Meditation is also necessary in transcending the worry-hurry habit. Meditation gives control to the superconscious mind, and when the superconscious mind is in control, perfect harmony of body and affairs exists. The worry-hurry habit is a sure indication that the conscious mind is in control, for poise, careful preparation, is a creation of the superconscious mind. Meditation several times each day and before going to sleep at night is a sure cure for the habit and will add immeasurably to one's health and happiness. Try it. Prove it. then pass the knowledge gained thereby to others who are in sore need of it. Freely ye have received, freely give. And in everything ye do, do as unto the Lord. This day I am the personification of poise, for I have made careful preparation of my work, my affairs, and myself for the coming events. This day I am a perfect center of order, continuity, and poise. This day, perfect poise is making me a center of divine power, and I open my consciousness now to its divine inflow. This day are the divine promises of God made manifest in me. Ask, and ye shall receive. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Closing credits. This recording of The Subconscious Mind, How to Reach and Arouse by Gertrude A. Bradford was presented by Stargate Book. Sound recording copyright 2023 and produced by Deep Send Limited 2023.